Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Sunday morning live stream for Week 8 of the 2024 fantasy football season. Over the course of the next 3 hours plus, we're answering any and all fantasy football related questions in regards to Week 8. Again, there are still a lot of questions unanswered in regards to our overall lineups based on players' overall statuses. For example, we don't know whether or not Jaden Daniels, DK Metcalf, T. Higgins, Travis Etienne, Zay Flowers, players of these calibers are going to be available going into this week. And hopefully as the live stream progresses, we're going to get more information made public by these overall organizations, by their overall kind of pregame warm-ups. And with those overall indications, we'll have a better sense of as to how we are going to approach this week. Now, of course, over the next 3 hours, we're answering any and all questions. Hopefully there are starter sit questions mainly and not trade questions or anything of that sort. But I will answer whatever comes in my direction. Again, if you're going to send in a question, please do me a favor and include your scoring format, whether it is a standard, half PPR, or full PPR. The more context you provide, the easier it will be. I greatly appreciate that. For those of you who have already sent in super chat questions and the message wasn't attached, do me a favor, type it in live chat so that I know. I know Catacomb Kid, I'm looking for where your question is. Still haven't found it. Type it in the chat. Thank you. Outside of that, again, the rankings, right here, wrong side. The rankings right here on the right side of the screen are updated as of this morning. So they do not include any of the players that performed on Thursday. So there are no Rams or Vikings implicated within these rankings. But any players who are anticipated to play are ranked on screen for a half PPR scoring format in regards to the top 36 running backs, top 36 wide receivers, top 16 quarterbacks and tight ends, top 12 kickers and defenses. Earlier today, I did post my overall rankings on Patreon for half and full PPR all-encompassing rankings. So for those of you who are Patreon supporters, be sure to go and check those out. Additionally, for those of you guys who have signed up via Underdog this season, again, those are also available. Those have been sent out to your email. All you have to do is use code Andrew, make that first time deposit minimum of $10. Of course, you get that every week henceforth. If you've already done it now, again, the email will have already arrived. Check your spam folder. Thank you very much. Okay, let's get into answering questions, shall we? Again, there is still a lot unknown as of right now. Jaden Daniels still does not play until the afternoon window. Understand that we don't know until 1 p.m. plus PST whether or not he is going to be active. So if you don't have a pivoting option, you might have to play someone in the early window instead, or potentially pick up a Marcus Mariota and then kind of deal with the consequences of the risk and versus reward situation there. Outside of that, let's get into answering these questions. So Michael H. begins the day with his first question. Says, in a full PPR with a tight end premium, this is a 3-part question. First, we have Caleb Williams or Tua Tagovailoa. I prefer to play Caleb Williams there. The rushing upside that he provides, and of course how well he's played as like coming off of the bye week, I think all of it is in his favor. So I will take Caleb Williams there at quarterback. As for your next question, Algier, Etienne, or Tracy, out of those 3 running backs, regardless of whether or not Etienne is active, I will play Tracy out of those 3. And then your next question is McConkey, Wan'Dale Robinson, or Cade Otton in a tight end premium in which you are getting an additional half a point per reception, whether it is, so basically 1.5 per reception, I would roll with Cade Otton in your overall flex position there. And then you said, I need a swing for the quote-unquote fences upside. Yeah, I think that is the way we go about it. Tracy, Caleb Williams, and Cade Otton. That would be the swing for the fences upside. And I think the strongest floor of production on top of it as well. Thank you. Trey sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, I need to trade away DJ Moore or Amari Cooper. Who are you higher on rest of the season? I would be higher on DJ Moore rest of the season. Again, as the season has progressed thus far, Caleb Williams has continued to improve as a quarterback. And, I mean, when we look at the upcoming schedule, especially for the late half of the season, it is very favorable for receiving members of the Chicago Bears and for Caleb Williams himself, mainly because, again, when you have to take on the Detroit Lions secondary, the Vikings secondary, and, of course, the Green Bay Packers secondary multiple times upcoming year, oftentimes you find a lot of success from the receivers and those quarterbacks in tandem. Obviously, we just saw what Matthew Stafford was able to accomplish with some sort of receiver help against that secondary of the Vikings going forward. So yeah, that's who I would prefer going forward in that circumstance, because again, there's still a lot of unknowns regarding that Buffalo Bills offense and what Amari Cooper will be, in terms of overall upside. So I would lean towards DJ Moore there. Thank you very much, Trey. Appreciate it. We move on to a question that comes in from Big Verge, who says, PPR pick 2, Neighbors, Wilson, Moore, HN, luxury options. Yeah, you definitely have some luxury options here. My pick 2 out of those 4 options would be Malik Neighbors alongside of Devon HN in a full PPR scoring format. Those are the 2 that I prefer to play today. Thank you. Moving on to a question that comes in from Christian Miller. with a Superman logo. Christian says, good morning, full PPR. Start 2 wide receivers, 1 running back, 1 flex this week. Mooney, Bateman, Myers, Pearsall, Dobbs, Odunze, Hopkins. Okay. So let's just start with the wide receiver conversation. Of the available wide receivers that you have on roster, Mooney and Dobbs are your 2 go-tos in terms of a full PPR set in stone. Those are the 2 that I'm playing, Mooney and Dobbs. Now, when we look at running back, you have Bijan, Brian Robinson, Mostert, Tracy, Estime, Alexander Madison, Ray Davis, and Bigsby. If you're starting one of those running backs, obviously you know that it's Bijan. And then within the flex position, it is pretty much between either playing Brian Robinson or pivoting to playing like a Ricky Pearsall. I'd probably just stick with playing Brian Robinson in this circumstance. Actually, let me check my rankings, see if I have Brian Robinson ahead of Pearsall in the current circumstance. Let's see here. Where is Pearsall? Yeah, I do have Brian Robinson ahead of Pearsall. And especially if, in fact, we have a potential in which Dayton Daniels does play, he's even higher upside. So at that point, I'm willing to take that risk versus reward kind of upside. So yeah, to reiterate one more time, in terms of the way that I want to go about this, Christian Miller, the 2 wide receivers again are Dobbs and Mooney. The running back is Bijan and the flex is Brian Robinson. Thank you very much. Have a great day. All right, we move on to a question that comes in from Ty Zombie 86. Thank you very much. Says, in a 6-point per passing touchdown league, do I start Tua, Mahomes, or Russell Wilson? Out of those 3, I would start Tua. Now, there is always an implicated risk. Sorry, not wrist. I mean, there is a risk. Okay, anyway, sorry. My brain is a little bit laggy right now. Just booted up the computer/brain. So going into this week, there is always an implicated risk in regards to Tua getting a lot of his touchdowns siphoned away by the running game. That is a given. But I think Mahomes and Wilson are very much so in the same boat with, of course, Kareem Hunt scoring 2 rushing touchdowns last week. We saw Najee Harris score a rushing touchdown. So even if Tua has the potential of, guys like Achane or Mostert stealing some rushing touchdowns in this circumstance, I do believe he is the most upside in terms of passing yardage, and additionally, the most upside in terms of letting one ball go and having his receivers take it to the house. With Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Jonnu Smith, Achane are all capable of accomplishing after the catch, I think is significantly higher than what the capabilities of all the other receiving options that are associated with Mahomes and Wilson, which elevate Tua to being the starting option there, Ty Zombie. Thank you. All right, moving on to another question, follow-up from Big Verge, who says, PPR, flex option. Pollard, Flowers, D-Hop. Okay, so D-Hop I'm not going to play in this circumstance because, again, I don't expect him to play very many snaps. D-Hop could be a superhuman and learn the entire playbook in the matter of 5 days, which is not out of the realm of possibility. He is a veteran. He knows the sport just about as great as anybody. He's, arguably one of the best wide receivers to play over the course of the last decade of football. Now, the only issue is, again, I don't expect him to play much, very similar to Amari Cooper last week. Amari Cooper only logged about 35% of the offensive snaps because of his unfamiliarity with the offensive scheme. So if that's going to be in a similar situation, he doesn't have as much upside. Now, when we talk about Flowers versus Pollard, we don't have a 100% indication whether or not Flowers is going to participate, primarily because, unfortunately, he is still dealing with that ankle injury, which, of course, left him out of practice up until Friday, where he was at a limited state. They did say earlier today that he was going to try to give it a go before the game. If, in fact, he is available, obviously, I'd prefer him over the potential of Pollard. But the issue is, let me see, when do they play? Okay, Baltimore plays, they play in the same window as the Tennessee Titans. So if we can get a 100% guarantee that Flowers is good to go before the game, I'd play him over Pollard. We'll know that in the next, I'd say, 2 hours or so. So keep an eye out for that in terms of potential Ian Rappaport or Adam Schefter releasing that report. But if, in fact, obviously he gets shut down before the game because obviously his ankle is not prepared, then you would just pivot to playing Pollard there. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, moving on to a question that comes in from Cinco2X, who says, PPR, Brian Thomas Jr. or Tyler Lockett? Again, earlier today, there was an indication that they said DK Metcalf is going to try to give it a go prior to the game. Again, I don't expect DK Metcalf to be able to be active. Regardless of whether or not he is, I'd still rather play Brian Thomas Jr. in this circumstance this week. Thank you, Cinco. Sergio sends in a question, says, in a half PPR, pick one, Tank Bigsby or Amari Cooper at the flex position. As of this week in a half PPR, let me see where I have them ranked accordingly. So let's go here. Let's go Cooper. All right, so Amari Cooper in comparison to Tank Bigsby. I have Tank Bigsby as my number 52. Amari Cooper is my 45. So Amari Cooper would be the preferred between the two of them. And that is with the assumption that Etienne's not even active. Now, the only thing that kind of holds Bigsby back is the overall lack of receiving utilization. Regardless of whether or not Etienne is active, the receiving utilization and workload will either go to ETN if active or D'Ernest Johnson if not. So Bigsby doesn't really have much upside in that overall category. He's an early down back, and unless the game script stays relatively close, his utilization is very much so contingent on that, which makes me want to just default to playing Amari Cooper in this circumstance, who will play for the majority of the game, if not the entirety of it. Thank you. Powerhouse says, Dobbs or Tillman in the flex? I'd much rather play Dobbs. Better matchup, better pizza, Papa John's. No. In terms of this overall circumstance, Jameis Winston's kind of a guy that I want to wait and see what he can produce. Last week, when he came into the game, the vast majority of his overall targets went in the direction of Jerry Jeudy in terms of the deep ball in comparison to Tillman. I mean, again, Tillman was like the number 3. So it went like Jeudy number 1, Njoku 2, Tillman 3 in terms of the overall target opportunities in which Jameis Winston kind of delivered outward towards his receiving core. So if going forward, we're going to see a very similar order of, kind of contributions of target opportunity, Dobbs is a significantly better option against that Jacksonville secondary that has not played well at all this season. We move on to the question that came in from Catacomb Kib, who said, Andrew, who should I play in a half PPR? Josh Allen, Amon-Ra, Waddle, Rashad White, Tank Bigsby, Kyle Pitts, Terry McLaurin, Bucky, Irving, Tua. Okay, so I don't know how much of this question you got in here, because that's what I found in the live chat. Maybe, I mean, at this point, again, Josh Allen, Amon-Ra, Waddle, Rashad White, Tank Bigsby, Kyle Pitts, Terry McLaurin. Pretty solid starting lineup. I don't know what the heck else you have on roster, but obviously that was the most recent message you sent in. If there's any other context that is required, send it in. Otherwise, I mean, again, that is as far as I know, and that would be your starting lineup, so there's no really alternative option. I'm not playing Tua ahead of Josh Allen, I'll tell you that much, but if it's a super flex, obviously it's a pretty solid looking team in this circumstance. Thank you, Catacomb. All right, moving on to the next question. We move on to, let's see here. Let's scroll back up. We have Chris all in. Chris, thank you very much. Chris says in a full PPR, start 1 wide receiver, 2 running backs, and 1 flex. We have Montgomery, Hunt, Bigsby, ETN, Najee Harris, Sutton, Flowers, and McMillan. Okay, I think this is very simple in my mind. The 2 running backs that I want to play and I will play this week are going to be Kareem Hunt and David Montgomery. Alongside of that, within your wide receiver 1 position, you are going to try to play Flowers. If, in fact, Flowers is not eligible to play because he is dealing with ankle injury and it is far too much for him to be active, then you would pivot to playing most likely in a full PPR. Let's pull this up. What do I have? McMillan, respectively. McMillan sits there. So this is the way you'd go about it. You try to play Flowers as your wide receiver. If not, you pivot to playing Sutton. And then within your flex position, you play Najee. So again, it would be Hunt, Montgomery, Najee, far and away, good to go. Otherwise, Flowers pivoting to Sutton. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Side Night sends in a question. Says, full PPR start 3. We have DJ Moore, Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, Zay Flowers, Connor, Dobbins, Bigsby. Okay, so you've got a lot of really good options here. Okay. Also, is it worth trying to make room for Christian Kirk? Trade rumors drop Pearsall. Okay, so it's just a matter of where is Christian Kirk gonna land? I don't think he can land on the teams that we want him to. We would want him to land in the Kansas City offense, right? Because he would theoretically fit into that slot receiving role of, Rashee Rice. Unfortunately, Christian Kirk's contract is massive. So unless the Jacksonville Jaguars were gonna eat the vast majority of the overall guaranteed money for this year, it would be very difficult to make that potential assumption that a move is potentially in line. But in this circumstance, I mean, you could try it. I don't think it's something that hurts you. Obviously, you're not playing Pearsall at the moment, so you might as well kind of give it a shot and see if he could be of value on somebody else, on another team, if in fact he does get traded or moved. Now, as for your starting lineup here, I want to play Dobbins for sure. Oh man, in a full PPR, let me see where I have Connor. I think Connor is going to be really the contested option here as to where I'm going with the rest of these guys. So where is Connor in my list? Connor sits right there in a full PPR, and there's Adams, there's DJ Moore. Yeah, so the way that I'd go about it, I would, if it was my team, Cyanide, I'm playing DJ Moore, Connor, and Dobbins this week. Those are the 3 that I feel most comfortable with. The odd man out in this scenario technically is Devontae Adams, but yeah, I prefer the running back opportunity share in comparison to what I could potentially get out of Adams, which again, if Adams scores a touchdown, he can keep up with these other guys. But again, that is the contingent. He has to score a touchdown. Otherwise, it makes it very difficult. Thank you. Flotation says, what does it say? Check X Giving the powers that be the wheel, lol. Okay, very well. All right, let's see here. You're letting the fantasy gods guide you, shall we say. Okay, so we're going to go ahead. Let's travel over to X. Let's see what you sent me. All right, flotation. So obviously, you know you're starting your two quarterbacks. You have Aaron Rodgers on the bench. I would probably, if it was my team, I would play Aaron Rodgers ahead of Dak Prescott. The last time out against the New England Patriots, he diced up that defense on that Thursday night game. What was it? 270 plus passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Now he has Devontae Adams within the lineup, a better offensive coordinator. The running game is now far more efficient. So I'd lean towards playing Aaron Rodgers over Dak Prescott as your starting quarterback in a super flex. Obviously, leave Jalen Hurts as your QB2. Now, looking at the rest of your lineup in terms of potential options, I would like to play Tracy over Austin Eckler as your RB. Amari Cooper solid, Mooney solid, Devontae Adams is solid. Fryer Muth sits there. What's the other option? Honestly, I'd play Laporta as well. And then I'd leave Lockett there. So yeah, there's a lot of potential variable change that I would suggest in this scenario based on where I have it ranked. I would play Aaron Rodgers instead of Prescott, Tracy instead of Eckler, Laporta over Fryer, and then I'd let it ride. That's the way that I'd go about it. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Flotation. Martin Miller sends in a question, says, pick 3 to full PPR. We have Rachaad White, we have Trey McBride, we have Darnell Mooney, we have Ricky Pearsall, and Brian Robinson. Okay, so you got a lot of great options here. Hopefully there are no wrong answers and all of them pop off for you on this wonderful Sunday. But the reality is that's probably not going to occur. So let's see if we can kind of pivot it down to 3 of the best options. I want to see where I have McBride in comparison to these options. So I have McBride at 54. He is below Pearsall, so therefore he's probably the lowest ranked of the group. Let me see where I have Rachaad White in comparison. Rachaad White is 2 spots below him. Okay, so then it would go... So the 3 best options in this scenario would then at that point be Brian Robinson, Mooney, and Pearsall. Yeah, those would be the 3 best. So Brian Robinson gets himself a boost if, in fact, Jaden Daniels plays. If he doesn't, I'm still going to play him because I would still implicate him to be a pretty strong overall start against the Bears' run-stop defense. Pearsall, again, is going to be a really hot start today in a lot of scenarios. You'll hear me suggest him in many situations, mainly because, again, there is no Juwan Jennings, there is no Brandon Ayuk, there is no Christian McCaffrey. Deebo Samuel still has some sort of pneumonia. That is a given, and there's always a chance that he could leave that game. And if, in fact, he does, and Deebo Samuel's pulling the vast majority of the defense's attention, Pearsall would be kind of that guy that's going to get himself peppered with opportunities. So him, Mooney with that great matchup, Brian Robinson, those are the 3 that I would suggest. 4th would be McBride, 5th would be Rachaad White in that circumstance. Thank you. OJ Running says, coffee, bagels, and Andrew, followed by beer and football. Yeah, baby. Let's see here. Keep streak alive. Thank you very much. Just wanted to say thanks. Thank you, OJ. Appreciate that. Have a great Sunday. All right, let's see here. Cascade sends in a question. Says, in a half PPR, Debo, Pollard, Tank Dell, who to bench? Out of those 3 options, if it's my team, I'm probably sitting, let's see here. Where do I have Pollard in comparison to Debo and Tank? I want to play both the receivers. I will tell you that objectively because I don't love the idea. Okay, so the way I have it, if it's me, I probably just play both the receivers. I'm perfectly fine with that. The only reason I say so is because if Mason Rudolph is starting quarterback today, even in the absence of Tyjae Spears, it is just so sketchy to roll out any sort of running, especially considering the Lions are 11-point favorites. If the Lions actually do blow them out by 30, the running game goes out the window. So the overall opportunity share in terms of the guaranteed touches that Tony Pollard typically is implicated for just disappears. So if it's me, I probably just roll with Tank Dell and Debo in that scenario. Thank you. If you want to play Pollard over Tank Dell, I have no issue with it, though. They're in the same tier of overall player within my rankings, so I could justify one over the other. If you're just like, hey, Andrew, I don't really want to deal with Tank. He kind of burnt me last week. I'd understand it. I'm okay with Pollard in that scenario, but I think Debo is the for sure in that scenario. Thank you. The professor sends in a question. Says, JD5 or Mahomes today? Let me see. When does Mahomes play this afternoon? So he plays in the Sunday afternoon game at 1:25. So if Jaden Daniels is active for the game, he would start 100%. For those of you guys who are looking at the rankings that are kind of rotating right here, in about 12 seconds now, the quarterback and tight end rankings will pop up on screen. Once they do, let me give you some context as to where I would rank Jaden Daniels in comparison to the other quarterbacks if, in fact, he's active today. Understand that we are not going to know until about an hour before that game whether he's active, but if he, in fact, he is, I would start him as my number 5 overall quarterback. So he would be ahead of Jared Goff, Stroud, Burrow, Purdy, etc. So I would love to play Jaden Daniels above the vast majority of overall potential quarterback options, but that has to mean that he's active. Considering you have Mahomes as a pivoting option, again, if JD5 is active, he would stay in your lineup. Otherwise, you could pivot to Mahomes taking on the Raiders. Thank you. Ryan sends in the question, says in a PPR Superflex, start 4 out of BTJ, Mooney, Mostert, May, Pearsall, JSN. Okay, so considering you have the potential of playing Drake May, I think I venture down that path. If it was my team, I'm going to roll with the idea of going in a PPR, playing BTJ, Mooney, Pearsall, and May. Those are the 4 that I would suggest rolling with today. As for your next question, also Tolbert or Tillman, rest of season, I think Jameis Winston, okay, if Jameis Winston still maintains his Tampa Bay ability, what I mean by that is his ability to throw the ball 40 times in a game, have 3 interceptions and 3 touchdowns, if he still has that capability within him and they allow him to unleash that and they're not going to throw in DTR after, he throws 2 picks and he can be a garbage time quarterback and be a fantasy stud in that circumstance, Tillman would be the preferred. And especially considering Brandon Cooks will eventually return, I'll probably lean towards Tillman as of right now, just as a kind of like, I'm holding him on roster. Let's see what he's capable of. If he's not capable of anything, we'll move on. It's not a big deal. All right. As a thought, sends it a question. Says, in a full PPR, flex Ridley or Tolbert. I'm not going to play Ridley. I'd rather play Tolbert there. And why? Yeah, the only reason I have no interest in playing Ridley is because he has done nothing this season to demonstrate that he is going to get the ball on a consistent basis. All we have seen from the Titans organization is coach speak. Yeah, we're going to try to get him more implicated. We're going to try to get him more early touches. We're going to try to get him more targets here and there. Regardless of which quarterback it has been, Calvin Ridley has not been a priority of this offense. It is designated based on the overall opportunity share, targets per route run. Everything is in a very bad state, and I don't trust the overall potential of Ridley in comparison to Tolbert, who, again, we know by far and away today is going to probably be a negative game script. And if they're going to potentially even be ahead in that game, they're still going to have him, implied for some sort of upside. So whichever way this matchup goes against the 49ers, I would assume that Tolbert is going to find himself at least probably 6 to 7, maybe 8 targets. If we get to a really negative game script, could get to 10 targets like we've seen earlier this year. But yeah, I'd assume that he gets himself a lot more, or not a lot more, but probably very similar usage, but just better opportunities in terms of accuracy and quarterback play. Yeah, Ridley has just been one of the biggest disappointments because you'd assume, if you put him on any other team, he could be a really valuable player, just like he demonstrated last year as a top 20 wide receiver in fantasy for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Moving on to Joe, who sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR flex one, we have Wicks, Etienne, or Mostert. Let me see where I have Wicks and Mostert in comparison to one another. I'm not really interested in playing Etienne in that circumstance. Again, he's a game-time decision. There's always a chance that he could leave that game early with an injury, kind of re-aggravating the hamstring, which again is very risky and something that I'm kind of wanting to avoid, kind of getting screwed over by. As of right now, between the bunch of players you have mentioned, let's see here. I have Mostert ahead of Wicks ever so slightly. The only issue that I have with Dontavion Wicks is his lack of overall usage within the offense. Like in terms of targets, he gets himself a fair share, but he only plays like 40 to 40, I think it's like 47 to 50% of the snaps. He splits overall snaps with Christian Watson, which is very sketchy. Now, that being said, they play against Jacksonville, which is one of the best, if not the best matchup you could possibly ask for within the given week for a quarterback and a wide receiver. So there's always a chance that he could always come down with a touchdown, have himself a fantastic day. Between him and Mostert, it's just a matter of like who has the highest upside for a touchdown. As of right now, I'm leaning towards the idea that it is Mostert between the two. Now, that being said, considering it's a full PPR, I'm actually going to switch it up. Let's just play Wicks there. Because Mostert's not going to catch any balls. Wicks at least will get himself the baseline of production, have at least maybe 4 receptions, 40 yards. Like, that's a given. At that point, like, for Mostert to be able to eclipse that, he's got to guarantee a touchdown. Wicks with a touchdown probably clears him. So yeah, let's just roll with Wicks there. Thank you. I kind of had to walk myself through that one slowly. Rob P sends in a question. Says, full PPR, Knicks, Murray, or Mayfield? Murray's number 1, Knicks number 2, Mayfield's 3. I kind of want to see Mayfield prove it to me in terms of his capabilities of being able to elevate these lesser receiver options. If you take away the 2 best receivers out of any quarterback's overall kind of offense, they're going to suffer. Look at what Patrick Mahomes is dealing with as of late without Rashee Rice. Look at what Matthew Stafford turned into after they took Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua out of the lineup. You re-inject him back into the offense, he throws 4 touchdowns in the first game back, right? So Mayfield, I think, going forward is going to be a significantly lesser option. Now, If in fact you have him on roster, I'm not saying you have to drop him. Again, if he's your only quarterback, you might want to just put him on your bench, pick up another quarterback, and then have Mayfield return in week 12. If you look at their weeks 12 through 15 matchups, very favorable for Mayfield, in which in that point, with the return of Mike Evans, I'd like to use him. But for now, Rob, I'm going to suggest you play Murray. Moving on to Samuel Walker, who says PPR, who for the flex? Jacobs, Garrett Wilson, and Pickens. Let me see where I have Jacobs comparatively. Let's see here. Yeah, Jacobs is my highest ranked player. It goes Jacobs, 25, Pickens, 27, and it goes Garrett Wilson, 34. So again, Jacobs and Pickens are 2 spots ranked next to each other. Jacobs is the clear number 1 at this point. If you want to play Pickens, I have no issue with that. They're close enough and within my rankings and my overall projection model to where, again, I don't see a differential more than 0.4 fantasy points, which again, not that big of a difference. So yeah, I prefer Jacobs, but I have no issue playing Pickens there. Thank you. Paul Allen sends in a question, says in a half PPR, Debo or Watson? Yeah, as of right now, if Debo is going to be active, I'm going to fire him up. Now again, this is under the implication that he plays on Sunday Night Football. So again, if he does not play, you have very little to no pivoting options, but based on the reports that we've heard earlier this morning, yesterday, the day before, everything is kind of trending towards him and George Kittle being active in this game. So I'm going to trust those reports and I'm going to play him this week in comparison to Christian Watson. Now, as for your next question, also Ingram or Kraft, between those two in a half PPR, I prefer Kraft. If it was a full PPR, I may consider Ingram. I probably would actually play Ingram, but for now, considering the half PPR format, give me Kraft. Thank you. Moving on to King Shakur 21, who says, I need to smash wide receivers and a flex. Wide receivers are Jaden Reed, Jalen McMillan, Trey Palmer, Ricky Pearsall, Tillman, and Mooney. Yeah, as of right now in a full PPR, if we're looking for... So let me see if I can get... Where's Pearsall in comparison to Mooney? Yeah, okay. So as it currently stands, like the order at which I would approach this, King Shakur, would be Jaden Reed number 1, Mooney number 2, Ricky Pearsall 3, Jalen McMillan 4, Cedric Tillman 5, and Trey Palmer 6. That's the order in which I would approach it, and that's what I would suggest. Thank you. Jem, I'm him, sends in a question. Says, start 3 in a PPR. We have Dobbs, Pittman, Shakir, Brian Robinson, JSN, and Terry McLaurin. Cool. So of those available, in a full PPR scoring format, the 3 that I feel most comfortable probably rolling with this week, looking at it across the board, it's probably like a Romeo. Oh, there you go. There's my YouTube just crashing. Fantastic. There goes my browser. Okay, let's hope that it reloads. It does reload. Okay, cool. All right, so let me go back here and find the question again. My YouTube completely crashed midway through the answer. Apologies. Let's go ahead, scroll back up if I can find it accordingly. Goodness gracious, where did it go? There it is. Jem. So Jem, the way that I'd go about it would be playing Dobbs, Brian Robinson, and Terry. Now, again, that's Terry under the assumption that we can get a Jaden Daniels to be active. If Jaden Daniels is not active at this point, I think the pivot to JSN or Shakir is probably smart. Now, considering we won't know whether or not Jaden Daniels is active until the afternoon, the pivoting option will be JSN. So again, this is my suggestion. You would play, again, as of right now, Romeo Dobbs, Brian Robinson. If Jaden Daniels is active, we can roll with Terry. If he is not, I would roll with JSN. You have the pivoting option available. Thank you. Brian Keebler sends in a question. Bryant says, in a 12-man half PPR, JSN or Dowdle? Appreciate you. Yeah. So considering we are most likely in a position in which DK Metcalf is not going to be able to play due to the knee injury that he sustained last week, between Jackson Smith and Rico Dowdle, the way I have it ranked, where the heck do I have Dowdle in this? Okay, yeah, I have Jackson Smith 3 spots ahead of Dowdle in a half PPR. Jackson would be the preferred of the 2. Thank you. Moving on to T. King, who says in a full PPR, should I flex Cedric Tillman or Sterling Shepard? As of right now, I prefer Cedric Tillman within that offense. Sterling Shepard, in terms of overall snap counts last week, in comparison to the overall workload that we saw out of McMillan and Trey Palmer, Sterling Shepard, unfortunately, is the number 3 there. Now that we proceed without Mike Evans / Chris Godwin, we may see a lot more 12 personnel, maybe 21 personnel out of this overall offense. We're going to have to see how they want to compensate for that. I think Sterling Shepard's a little bit of a lesser option in comparison, but Cedric Tillman will be the preferred. Thank you. Aaron K sends in a question. Thank you, Aaron. Aaron says in a full PPR, we need 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 1 flex. My running backs that I have available are Achane, Brian Robinson, Connor. Wide receivers are Sun God, Devontae Smith, Marvin Harrison, Cooper, and Dobbs. Cool. So of the available options you have here, the two running backs that I'm suggesting are Achane and James Conner. The two wide receivers that I would suggest are Sun God and let me see, where do I have Romeo Dobbs in comparison to Amari Cooper in a full PPR? So I do have Amari Cooper ahead of Romeo Dobbs, but I'm still going to play Dobbs there in the flex. So it would go Achane, Connor, Amon-Ra, Cooper, and Romeo Dobbs. Those are the five that I'd suggest, Aaron. Thank you. Pokemon sends in a question, says full PPR, Jaden Daniels or Tua. Also Terry or Waddle. Okay, between Terry and Waddle, I know for a fact I know for a fact that Tua is going to play. So I'd like to play Waddle in that scenario. Terry, again, under the contingency in which we do not have an active, we don't have an active Jaden Daniels, is a lesser option with Marcus Mariota. This being said, I do want to mention, the issue that I have with like Jaden Daniels versus Tua is mainly off of when these games take place. If they all started at the same time, we try to risk playing Jaden Daniels. But considering Tua plays in the 10 a.m. window, so basically in 2.5 hours here, he will begin playing. And because of that, there was so much implied risk of if in fact you don't start Tua, you would have to go and find another pivoting option in comparison to if in fact Jaden Daniels was not active. Now, if you have a pivoting option available in the form of potentially, let's say, for example, let me throw out some names. In the afternoon slate, if you have Bo Nix, if you have Geno Smith, if you have Caleb Williams, if you have even, let's say, for example, Russell Wilson available. Those are all 4 quarterbacks that I have in my top 16 rankings that could still be available in the afternoon slate that if, in fact, you want to drop Tua and then pick one of them up in order to potentially risk playing Jaden Daniels in the 125 potential window slate in PM PST, you could do so. And I would not mind that. Again, I do believe there's a lot of risk implicated, but there's also a lot of upside if Jaden Daniels is active and ready to go. This week, Brisker and Gordon, 2 starting members of the secondary of the Bears, are inactive and out already. Obviously, still coming off of the bye week, they're still dealing with a lot of injuries. So if Jaden Daniels is active, he would tear them apart, I would assume. Obviously, it's a lot of pain management with the rib cartilage injury, so we'll have to wait and see. I mean, again, there's always a chance, but we don't know for sure. So yeah, I mean, you'd have to drop Tua in order to make that pivoting option. Otherwise, you just start Tua and keep it moving. Thank you. All right, Joe Boggs sends in a question. Says, big matchup between my number 1 and number 2 team. I need to pick 2 between Gibbs, Reed, and Malik Neighbors. Cool. Look, you got really good options here, and hopefully there's no wrong answer. But between the 3 of them, I would prefer to play Gibbs and Neighbors. I understand Neighbors is associated with an offense that did not look great at all last week. I would assume that going into this matchup, it is going to be very much so contingent on whether or not they can keep Daniel Jones alive. For some reason, Daniel Jones on the road has just been a better quarterback. And I'm going to assume on Monday Night Football, he will demonstrate somehow, some way. I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe it's like a placebo effect for him. But on the road, the guy is a complete machine. And I think he'll be able to elevate Malik Neighbors to that sense. Now, if you're worried about it, the difference in terms of my overall rankings between Reed and Neighbors is not enough to where I'm like, you have to play Neighbors. If you want to play Reed, especially against Jacksonville, I have no issue doing so. If it was my team, though, I would be playing Gibbs and Neighbors. Thank you. Gog sends in a question. Says, in a PPR, start 1 wide receiver and 2 flex between BTJ, Garrett Wilson, DJ Moore, Najee Harris, Rashad White, and Tank Dell. Also can't decide between Caleb and Kirk Cousins. Thanks. Yeah, between the 2 of them, I mean, again, regardless of whether or not Jaden Daniels is active, that game should be a higher scoring one between Washington and the Bears. I would assume that Caleb Williams is probably a solid overall play in a 4-point per passing touchdown, especially with his rushing upside, but I just like the overall potential that Kirk Cousins presents in regards to the matchup as a whole, considering he dominated against them recently. That secondary just sent one of their starting cornerbacks to the IR. Like, I would assume that Kirk Cousins is going to pull his head out of his ass in comparison to what he has done last week, which was a complete disaster, and be a significantly better quarterback option. So that's why I have him ahead of Caleb, but it's only 1 spot difference. So the overall projection it's not very much so of a, the difference between those 2 quarterback rankings and projections are not enough to where I say you have to start Kirk. If you want to play Caleb, I have no issue with it. Now, in regards to your wide receiver and your 2 flex options of the available that you have here, between the bunch, DJ Moore has to play as your wide receiver. I think Garrett Wilson's also another start. Honestly, let me see where I have BT. Yeah, I think you have to start all 3 wide receivers in the full PPR format. Yeah. So as of right now, DJ Moore, Garrett Wilson, BTJ. That's the way that you would go about this, Gog. Thank you. Moving on to a question from Austin H, who says, PPR, worried about starting Hunt over Jacobs. I don't know why you would be, but okay. Again, if you just look at the overall workload of Hunt in the last 2 weeks, what is it, 22 plus rushing attempts each game? I mean, the offense has to run the ball. It is predicated on running the ball because Mahomes cannot pull it through the air. So, I mean, again, I have no questions regarding Hunt. You see how high I have him ranked. The guy's just been absolute money the last 2 weeks. And when you take on the Raiders with no Max Crosby on top of it, it just seems like it's an automatic play there. But if you want to play Jacobs, again, they're both in the top 15 running backs. I mean, again, there should be no wrong answer between the two. They should both be able to produce at least 15 fantasy points in a full PPR. At least. If they're not able to, then obviously, they probably got screwed over in terms of a red zone touchdown, etc. Which, again, we know, unfortunately, due to the overall workload that we have seen thus far this season from Jacobs, they do not like him getting touches, on the 1 yard line. Let's see here. Moving on to Alex Songgrass, who says standard, start 2, Brian Robinson, Tank Bigsby, James Cook, Jacobs. Yeah, as of those available options, probably leaning towards playing James Cook and Josh Jacobs out of those available in a standard scoring format. James Cook and Josh Jacobs. Now, as for your next question, standard, Kyle Pitts or Tucker Kraft. Considering Tucker Kraft is more inclined to score a touchdown, Tucker Kraft would be the preferred there. Moving on to your next question, full PPR, start Tank Bigsby, Brian Robinson, or Rachaad White. Let me see where I have Rachaad White comparatively in a full PPR. I'd still play Brian Robinson there out of the group, especially with the potential for upside in that circumstance. Yeah, so, and then your last question is JD Mahomes. Again, if JD's active, he would take the start. So from the top to the bottom, Alex Songgrass, the way that I go about this is James Cook, Josh Jacobs for the first question, Brian Robinson for the second question, JD for the third question, with the pivoting option of Mahomes if he's not active. All right, let's see here. Dougie, 96, says in a PPR, Dougie P, huh? Like Doug Peterson. Interesting. PPR Superflex, bench 2, Anthony Richardson, Geno, Tua, Adams, Amari Cooper, BTJ, JT. Okay, so in this scenario, in a super flex format, I'm playing both Geno and Tua. I don't see myself playing wide receivers or running backs over those two. If it's a 4-point per passing touchdown league, if it was a 6-point, it wouldn't even be a question. But if you have literally 2 available spots to play in the super flex, it's actually bench 2. Apologies. So if we're benching 2 of these players and we can start 3 quarterbacks theoretically, I'd actually venture down that path. No, we'll just play Geno, Tua, Adams, JT. Yeah. Geno, Tua, Adams, JT, BTJ, Amari, and Anthony Richardson get the bench, Dougie. Thank you. Nel Santiago says, hey, bro, PPR, Ramondre Stevenson or JSN? I'd rather play JSN. Ramondre Stevenson is someone that I don't really trust because I don't trust the offensive coordinator, nor do I trust the offensive play calling, nor do I trust the overall script of that game to provide value to Ramondre in the running options. On top of it, even though he is a significantly capable running back, to get himself receiving utilization, they do not utilize him in that overall circumstance, so he is a lesser option comparatively. Thank you. Fish Clinic sends in a question. Says Keenan Allen or D-Hop. Oh, okay, so I'd much rather play Keenan Allen because I know he'll play a full complement of overall snaps. In comparison to your next question, also Bigsby or Pollard, I'd rather play Pollard there. Thank you. T. King sends in a follow-up, says, sorry, full PPR, start 2, Zay Flowers, Cedric Tillman, Sterling Shepard. Zay Flowers and Tillman would be the plays. If Flowers cannot go today, obviously you'd pivot to playing Shepard, but you'll know that in about an hour and a half probably. Thank you. Nick Johnson sends in a question, says, half PPR, start 1, Dowdle, Ricky Pearsall, Shakir, or Tracy. Out of all 4 of those options, the way that I would rank it in order would be Ricky Pearsall, number 1, Dowdle, 2, Tracy, 3, Shakir, 4.5 PPR. Thank you. Adam sends in a question, says in a full PPR, in the flex, who would you start, Marvin Harrison or Rachaad White? If it was my team, I would play Rachaad White there. Thank you. Eric Nixon sends in a question. Thank you, Eric. Eric says in a full PPR, my running backs are Hunt, Brian Robinson, flex is Dowdle, wide receivers are Samuel, Mooney, Tolbert, Kittle is my tight end. My bench consists of Pearsall, Judy, Myers, Pollard, Taysom Hill. Thoughts? Okay, looking at your entire team as a whole, my initial thoughts is that I want to replace Dowdle at the flex with Tony Pollard. On top of that, I also want to replace Tolbert with Pearsall and start 3 49ers. But again, I understand that why you might want to avoid that because there's just so much kind of starting 3 players on the same team in which one of them is not a quarterback, again, I understand the implied risk there, but in terms of my overall rankings, the way that I would approach it would be playing Pollard at that flex and Pearsall over Tolbert. If you have no interest in doing so, because again, you don't want to fire up 349ers, then keep it as Tolbert there in that scenario, and that would be it. That's the only potential change that I would make would be the Pollard situation. As for your next question, drop Taysom Hill week 9 for Jonnu Smith. Let me see. Where is the matchup for? They play against the Bills. I mean, again, it depends on how much utilization Jonnu Smith gets today in comparison to Taysom Hill. Like Taysom Hill, if we look at his overall matchup next week, let's see here. If we filter over to week 9 for the New Orleans Saints, let me just get a glimpse of this. Yeah, I'd like to keep Taysom Hill. Because again, in week 9, taking on the Carolina Panthers, if we're going to be in a situation where Bryce Young is going to be the starting quarterback, I'm doing everything to start every Saint next week, especially if Derek Carr is returning. Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara, the Saints defense, Taysom Hill, Olave, all of them will be implicated for having incredibly high upside. So in the long term, Jonnu Smith is the answer. In the short term, I think Taysom Hill is probably the one that we want to keep considering Carolina next week. Thank you. All right, moving on. We have AJ who sends in a question. Says, hey, Andrew, I'm currently 2-5 in a 10-team PPR. Do I flex Cade Otton, Lockett, or Wicks, or Bateman next to Najee Harris? I'm projected the same amount of points with Hall, Henry, and Leonard. Okay, so I guess my opponent with that all. Okay, good to know. Let's see here. Otton, Lockett, Wicks, Bateman. So it's pretty much Otton or Lockett in my position. In a full PPR, let me see where I have Cade Otton. So as it currently stands, I do have literally, not even a joke, I have Cade Otton one spot ahead of Tyler Lockett. He is the highest ranked player of the bunch. It would go Cade Otton number 1. It would go Tyler Lockett number 2, followed by Rashad Bateman 3 and Dontavion Wicks 4. So Otton would be the play in this circumstance, in my opinion. Thank you. Joseph Romero sends in a question, says, in a half PPR, Mooney, Brian Robinson, Bigsby, with ETN likely out, or Pearsall. Out of those available options in a half PPR, I'm pretty sure I have Brian Robinson ranked the highest. Let me confirm this. Let's see here. Let's find Brian Robinson in comparison to like Mooney. Yeah, Brian Robinson is the highest ranked player of the bunch, and that's what I would suggest, Joseph Romero. Thank you. Jammed Out sends in a question, says, in a full PPR, I need one wide receiver and one flex. Out of Brian Robinson, Marvin Harrison, and Ricky Pearsall, I would start if it was my team, legitimately, no questions about it. In my mind, at least, I'd play Brian Robinson as your flex, and I'd play Ricky Pearsall as your wide receiver. I need Marvin Harrison to prove to me that he could take on these kind of coverage, like Jalen Ramsey, all day, and still be a relevant option. And I need the Arizona Cardinals to prove to me that they want him to be far more implemented within the offense, which again they haven't really demonstrated at all. That they want to like prioritize him in comparison to some of the other options, specifically like the running game and or Trey McBride, who obviously Trey McBride leads the team in overall targets, receptions, receiving yards, etc. All right. I know that Thomas Dabney sent in a question, nothing attached to it. Thomas says, Mixon, Achane as my RB1 and 2, Neighbors and Jamar as my wide receiver 1 and 2, Jacobs at the flex. I have Marvin, Olave, Garrett on my bench. Do I plug in one of them somewhere or pick up more and plug? In a half. Okay, so what is your scoring format, Thomas? Let me actually... You don't even have to answer. I'm just going to answer your question in half and full PPR as to Jacobs versus DJ Moore's ranking. So let me look this up. So Jacobs in comparison to DJ Moore in a half PPR, I prefer Jacobs. Jacobs in compared to DJ Moore in a full PPR, I still prefer Jacobs. So regardless of what you do, keep your lineup as is. Do not change it. I would prefer what you have rather than what potentially could be, pivoted to. Thank you. Appreciate it, Thomas. All right, moving on to another question here. We have from... Let's see, where is the next question? Okay, before we continue on, again, for those of you guys who are joining us this morning, welcome. Hope you guys are all doing well on this wonderful Sunday. Again, if you guys are members of the Patreon, rankings have already been posted. For those of you who have already signed up via Underdog using code Andrew this season, those rankings have been sent out for my email directly to yours. Make sure you check your spam folder. On top of that, additionally, do not forget that the rankings on screen to the right side of the screen are rankings for this morning, up to date, ready to go. Now, again, we don't know the 100% status of like a T. Higgins, a Jaden Daniels, a Zay Flowers, a DK Metcalf, Travis Etienne. Until we get more information there, the rankings will sit as such. Once I get context regarding those players' status, I will change the rankings on screen. But if you want interpositional rankings, the rankings on screen to the right are as of this morning, literally was updated 10 minutes before the stream began. Thank you. All right, moving on to a question that comes in from Nathan24. Says, if Higgins is a no-go, start Worthy or Yoshi Voss. If Higgins is a no-go, do I want to play Yoshi Boss against the Eagles? That's more of a question of how do the Eagles play against slot receiving options? Let me just go ahead and venture off to my PFF website and kind of get a glimpse as to what exactly we've seen recently. So we go and we look at Philadelphia's corner coverage in terms of their nickel. I think it's probably Avonte Maddox, who's probably their primary nickel. Yeah, he has been this season. He's actually been pretty good in terms of overall coverage, but they play a lot of zone. I think I'd probably just still rather play Worthy in that scenario as of this week. Thank you. Moving on to a question from Joseph Romero. It says, roll the dice or wait on Daniels, start Cousins. Considering you have... Okay, so look, if you don't start Cousins, what's your pivoting option? Is it a lesser... do you have at least the ability to pick up and play Mariota? Do you have... Well, again, Mariota right now, if he was to play, I have him ranked as my number 18 quarterback. But if you have the ability to pivot to someone like Bo Nix, Russell Wilson in the afternoon slate, I don't mind the wait if you want to risk it for the biscuit. Otherwise, again, if you don't have a pivoting option, then you just have to play Kirk in this circumstance. Or, of course, take the risk of playing Mariota in 2024, which, again, last week looked solid, but you never know, man. 1 week to another, teams kind of flip their look. It's the NFL math. So if it's my overall team, if you don't have pivoting options, you have to play Cousins. Thank you. Big Verge sends in a follow-up, says, in a full PPR RB2, Bucky or Dowdle? I'd much rather play Dowdle. Next question, flex Marvin Harrison or D-Hop? I'd rather play Marvin Harrison. Thank you. Nathan Smith sends in a question, says, do you trust Deebo Samuel or start Jackson Smith and Jigba? I would assume, considering he has practiced each of the last, 3 days here, and the fact that the organization has come out and said that he's going to most likely play, if those positive pieces of information were not released, I wouldn't trust him. Because I'd assume, okay, maybe he's not fully healthy. He may leave the game midway through. But considering we have seen the positive progression of his overall week, discharged from the hospital, practiced in a limited capacity in the last two overall days, Thursday and Friday, expected to play on Sunday, I lean towards playing Deebo in that circumstance. T. King sends in a question, says, full PPR Rodgers and Conklin or Tua and Jonnu Smith? I'd rather play Tua and Jonnu Smith. Thank you. I Am sends in a question, says, my wide receivers are cheeks, and I need to win. Pick 3 to PPR: Marvin Harrison, McMillan, Ridley, Judy. I have Njoku, Demario Douglas, okay, Hopkins, Odunze, or 2 of them in flex Chubb. Okay, got it. So of the available in a full PPR scoring format, the highest ranked players that I have in this circumstance at wide receiver are going to be like Demario Douglas, Marvin Harrison, and McMillan. Those would be the 3 that I'd roll with. Yeah, it doesn't look great. I'd agree with you. Am I flexing Chubb over any of those options? Let me see where I have Chubb in comparison to like a McMillan in a full PPR. So McMillan sits there. Nick Chubb, I think, let's see, where art thou? Control F, Chubb. Yeah, no. I'm going to play all 3 of those wide receivers. McMillan, Demario Douglas, and Marvin Harrison. I don't like it, I am, but that's the best you've got at this point, unfortunately. Let's see here. Bomb sends in a question. Says, hey, Andrew, pick 2, Cade, Kraft, Ingram. Out of those 3 options, I'm playing Tucker Kraft 1, Evan Ingram 2, and then Cade Otton 3. So Kraft and Ingram would be the 2 that I play today. Daniel Russell sends in a question. Says, full PPR, play in the flex, Cade Otton or Tony Pollard? Let me see where I have Cade Otton in comparison. Let's see here. Cade Otton sits there. Tony Pollard is ahead of him in my full PPR rankings. If it was a tight end premium, then I'd consider Otton, but considering it's not, Pollard would be the suggested play there. Thank you. G. Hefe sends in a question. Says, Kirk Richardson or Jaden Daniels? Again, if you do not have a pivoting option to Jaden Daniels, like a Bo Nix or a potential Russell Wilson, or you don't trust Marcus Mariota, then you have to play Kirk Cousins. If you want to risk it and you have a pivoting option, then you play, you go down the path of Jaden Daniels. But again, you'd have to drop the other quarterbacks you have on roster in order to pick up those pivoting options in case he is not available in the afternoon window in comparison to Kirk Cousins, who plays in the morning slate. Thank you. All right. Fox sends in a question. It says, full PPR, Pearsall, Mooney, or Kraft? Between those 3 in a full PPR, I'm pretty sure I have Mooney. Let me confirm this. Mooney. Yeah, I have Mooney, Kraft, and Pearsall back to back to back, 49, 50, 51. Mooney's number 49, Kraft is 50, Pearsall's 51, back to back to back. No joke. Thank you. HFL 5864 says in a full PPR, start 2 wide receivers, Shakir, London, Lockett, Kirk. Out of those available, I'm going to play London alongside of, where do I have Shakir in comparison to him? Yeah, so I have Shakir and London as the 2 highest ranked wide receivers are HFL. As for your next question, Njoku or Ferguson, I'd rather play Njoku. And in flex, either one of those tight ends or a potential. Okay, yeah. So let me see where I have Jake Ferguson in comparison to Lockett at the moment. Let's see here. Jake Ferguson sits there. He's ahead of Lockett. So the way that I go about it this week, HFL would be playing London, Shakir, Njoku, and Ferguson. That's the 4 that I would play this week, HFL. Thank you. Ado Frodom sends in a question. Says, start 2.5 PPR. Brian Robinson, JT, Tank, Najee, Jaden Reed. Okay, so of those available in a half PPR scoring format, Jaden Reed and JT would be my suggestions. Thank you. Derek Just says in a full PPR, Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle. I'd much rather play Jalen Waddle as of this current moment in time. Devontae Smith has a little bit more of a difficult matchup, specifically taking on Mike Hilton, the primary nickel cornerback of the Cincinnati Bengals. While Waddle, again, that secondary of the Arizona Cardinals has been awful all season, regardless of what he matches up against. Matthew 1031 says, good morning, sir. Good morning to you as well. Full PPR flex, James Conner or Waddle? Let me see where I have Conner. I'm going to assume that I have Conner slightly ahead of him because I really like that matchup against the Miami run stop. Yeah, I have James Conner ahead of him in a full PPR. Feeling Conner could have a big game. Yeah, I agree with you, Matthew. Keep it as is. Keep Conner in the lineup. Thank you. FZ Ware sends in a question, says, Tyrone Tracy, Jerry Jeudy, Rome Odunze, pick 1. It's either between Jeudy and Tracy. Let me see where I have Jeudy in comparison. As of right now, the way that I have it ranked is I have Jeudy as the highest ranked of the bunch. Jeudy would be number 1, Tracy would be number 2, and Rome Odunze would be 3. Thank you. In a full PPR, of course. If it was a half PPR, I would lean towards playing Tracy in that circumstance. Thank you. Alan D sends in a question, says, PPR, Bigsby, Pollard, JSN. Okay, between those 3 in a full PPR, Pollard's number 1. Actually, let me check this just to confirm. Jason's that, yeah, Pollard is number 1. Pollard 1, JSN 2, Bigsby 3. Next question, start quarterback Geno, Bo, or Baker. Between those 3, again, I do prefer to play Bo, considering Geno is probably going to be without DK, and Baker is obviously without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So Bo Nix would be the number 1, Geno 2, Baker 3. Thank you. Brandon McDaniel sends in a question. Nothing attached to it. Brandon, hopefully you typed in the live chat so I can find that question of ease. Do me a favor, Brandon, if you can do me a solid, retype in your question into the live chat right now once you hear this so that I can go ahead and answer that question. Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate it. All right. While we wait for Brandon McDaniel to send in that question, we will continue on with Dylan Joseph, who says, in a standard 6-point per passing touchdown league, Goff or Waddle in the flex? I'd much rather play Goff. Next question, Murray or Marvin Harrison? Sorry, or Murray. Okay, got it. It's actually one or the other. So it's Goff, Waddle, or Murray and Marvin Harrison stack. Give me the Goff and Waddle side. Cleared away. They're both the higher ranked players as of right now. Moon 007 says, in a full PPR, put Puka in the flex last minute before Thursday Night Football. Congratulations. Higgins out. Did we get notification on that? Hold up. Wait a minute. No evidence of no T. Higgins today. What does that report even mean? Why did he phrase it like that? So as it stands right now, it doesn't look like T. Higgins in his chance to play today after suffering a quad injury on Friday's practice, sources tell me. And then no more evidence on no T. Higgins. Okay, got it. So basically, T. Higgins is implied to potentially not play today. There's no guarantee that he doesn't play, but it is implied that he does not play. Okay, so if that's going to be the case, let me do everybody a favor really quickly. Actually, I'm going to leave T. Higgins on the screen. I just still want to wait. Anyway, so going back to your question, Moon. So it says no T. Higgins. Drake London at wide receiver 1. Pick a wide receiver 2 between Bateman, Wan'Dale Robinson, and McMillan. Between those available options in a full PPR, I'm actually going to play Wan'Dale Robinson there. It would go Wan'Dale 1, Bateman 2, and McMillan 3. But Wan'Dale Robinson will be the preferred in the full PPR format there. Moon, thank you. Gabriella sends in a question, says, in a full PPR flex, McMillan, Lockett, or Rachaad White? Let me see where I have Rachaad White in comparison to Lockett. So I have Lockett there. Rachaad White is ranked ahead of him. So Rachaad White would be the suggestion. Gabriella, thank you. Christopher Slender sends in a question, says, half PPR, 10-man league, pick one, Myers, Brown, or Douglas. Under the assumption that Brown is Chase Brown, he would be the start. If Brown is anybody else, I'm going to play Douglas. Okay, thank you. All right, let me go back into the live chat, see if Mr. McDaniel has sent in a question. All right, Brandon McDaniel is nowhere to be found. Very well. So be it. Terry R says, did you get to my super chat? Not yet, Terry. We're not even close, brother. We are, I'm a little bit behind schedule, to say the very least, so we haven't gotten there yet. All right, Brandon, if you ever show back up, let me know. Otherwise, continuing on. Thomas sends in a question. Thomas says, in a full PPR, Dell or Mooney? I prefer Dell as of this week. Next question, Love, Puka, Monty, HN, Hunt. It's not really a question. I guess it's a matter of like adding them to your lineup. Yeah, between those two, I'd like to play Dell. If you want to play Mooney, I have no issue with it. As of the current full PPR ranking setup, Dell and Mooney are probably, 4 rankings separated, but Dell is my preferred. Thank you. Trayshawn Tyson sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, pick 2, Flowers, Tank, Devontae, Smith. Okay, so between those available, again, if Flowers is going to be active today and gets in the pregame warm-up and is ready to go, Flowers would play alongside a Tank Dell, and Devontae would be the bench. If Flowers is not available, obviously to pivot to playing Devontae Smith. Thank you. Najee Henderson sends in a question. Says, in a half PPR, sit 1, Mooney, Waddle, JSN, if T. Higgins sits. Okay, so let's lean towards the assumption that T. Higgins does sit. If that's going to be the case, you're playing Mooney and Waddle. Okay? And you would sit And you would sit JSN. Okay, cool. Sounds good. Perfect. Coco Loco says, in a full PPR, flex DeAndre Hopkins, Pittman, Leggett, or Shakir. Out of those available in a full PPR, I'm playing Khalil Shakir. Thank you. FZ Ware says, can you elaborate on Cousins over Kyler? Yeah, it's just purely off matchup. The issue with the Arizona Cardinals is they have scored 17 or fewer points in 4 of the last 5 games. As an offense, they cannot function through the air. Kyler has thrown a touchdown each of the last, every game this season, actually. I think he's thrown at least 1 touchdown minimum. But the issue primarily resides around the matchup itself, which, again, Kirk Cousins has a significantly better one and went off for 500 yards and 4 passing touchdowns last time out against them. So his baseline of production is just that much significantly higher, while Kyler requires 50-plus rushing yards and probably a rushing touchdown to be able to kind of compete or keep up with his overall baseline. Marcus Nelman says, in a full PPR, David Montgomery, Najee Harris, or Mooney. I have Pickens, FYI. Got it. So I'm not really interested in playing Najee ahead of Montgomery. It's just a matter of, do I prefer Montgomery or Mooney right now in a full PPR? I would still just play Montgomery there because it's a safe 13, 14 points that I just don't want to really mess with. So I'm going to lean towards playing Montgomery there against the Titans. Thank you. Nasi sends in a question, nothing attached to it. Nasi, do me a favor and type in the live chat so I can get to your question. I'm going to actually write these names down. So we need to type down McDaniel and Nasi. All right. Dior Kev sends in a question. Dior, welcome. Says, in a full PPR, I need 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and a flex. We have Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, Zay Flowers, Jahmyr Gibbs, Joe Mixon, Kareem Hunt, Najee Harris. Thanks, Andrew. Stay hydrated. Thank you. So of the available options you have, the 2 wide receivers that I'm playing are Adams and Garrett Wilson. The 2 running backs that I'm playing are Mixon and Jahmyr Gibbs, and I am flexing Kareem Hunt. Thank you, Dior. Matt says, sup, Andrew? In a full PPR, Dobbs, Pearsall, or Roma Dunze? Out of those 3, the order at which I would proceed would be Dobbs number 1, Pearsall 2, and Roma Dunze 3. Anthony O sends in a question, says, good morning, brother. In a full PPR with Jaden Daniels potentially playing, would you flex Terry McLaurin, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Khalil Shakir? If, in fact, Jaden Daniels is to play, Terry McLaurin would be my preferred play. But again, considering we have the circumstance of the Bills playing in the morning slate, on top of that, the Giants playing in the morning slate this morning. Oh, actually, no, that's week 9. Sorry, I got to update back to this last one. Okay, so the Bills play, where do they play? They play in the afternoon slate. Okay, cool. So yeah, at that point, if we do see the potential in which Terry McLaurin does play today, if we do see Jaden Daniels play today, Terry McLaurin would be your start. Otherwise, if it's Marcus Mariota, I'm pivoting to playing Khalil Shakir. Anthony, thank you. Joel Garza says, in a full PPR, Javonte Williams, Rachaad White, Let's see here, or JSN. Out of those available options, I'm going to play Javonte Williams very comfortably. Thank you. Okay, let me go back into the live chat. Let me see if Brandon McDaniel sent in anything. Nothing from McDaniel. Okay, so Brandon McDaniel, you're off the list. I appreciate your support, but there was nothing in the chat. Nasi, nothing available in the chat as well. Okay, very well. We'll continue to keep it going. Appreciate y'all. Again, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and open up Photoshop. We're going to remove T. Higgins off of this. If T. Higgins does, in fact, end up being a potential play, somehow, some way, so be it. But again, based on all the reports that I guess we have seen recently as of this morning from Schefter and or the beat writer for the Bengals, it does not seem like he is implicated to play. Therefore, we want to probably remove him off the screen to give no one an indication that he may play, just to kind of make it a little bit safer. Does Yoshi Voss potentially become a better play? Sure. I don't know how much of a better play he technically becomes because, again, the offense doesn't really flow through him. He's had himself pretty solid weeks in the absence of T. Higgins earlier this year, but a lot of them had to do with implied touchdowns, which, again, I don't know how implied they are within the upcoming matchup. I do like the overall potential, but I've moved down Joe Burrow already just in case of this circumstance occurring. So Joe Burrow doesn't really move anyway because I kind of assumed this would occur. So I moved Joe Burrow down accordingly to kind of compensate for this preemptively. Let me go to my Photoshop. Almost done here. I want to just pivot in another wide receiver into the list. File, save as, copy, JPEG. You are seeing the man work his graphics as he speaks. Let's save it to this one. Save. There it is, done. Okay, so the ranking that is on screen right now, that is at wide receiver, will now exclude T. Higgins. And going forward, if you ask me about T. Higgins, I'm going to assume that he's not going to play. If he does end up playing, then obviously you know to start him at a top 16 capacity because that's where he was originally. Thank you. All right, let me stay into the live chat really quickly. Nasi sending anything? No. Let's see here. Control F. Nothing. McDaniel. Nothing. Got it. All right. Moving on. We continue with a question that comes in from... We took care of Anthony O. Joel Garza we took care of. Okay, Roderick Hart sends in a question. Says, in a 16-team full PPR, do I flex Dowdle, Pittman, or Shakir? Out of those three options, I'm playing Shakir. Thank you. Carlos says, yo, Andrew, Keenan Allen or Rashad Bateman in a full PPR? I'd rather play Keenan Allen. Thank you. Kevin Smith sends in a question. Says, sup, PPR, sit one. Adams, Montgomery, Marvin Harrison, Russ, or Caleb? If I'm sitting one... and you have the ability to play multiple... Oh, sorry. Those are two different questions. I apologize. I'm playing Adams and Montgomery. I'm sitting Marvin Harrison. And then as for Russell Wilson versus Caleb Williams, I'd rather play Caleb Williams. Thank you, Kevin. Mike Taylor says, Cole Kmet in a great spot with upside against Washington or trust McBride? I don't know how much potential for upside Kmet theoretically has. I mean, again, it's purely just based on red zone utilization because we know for a fact McBride is going to double up the targets that Cole Kmet is going to be able to accrue over today's game. Now, if Kmet is going to get the most valuable targets, those near the red zone in the potential of scoring a touchdown, maybe end zone targets, then of course he has the ability to outproduce McBride. But as of right now, if you're playing in any sort of PPR, half PPR format, I think I'd rather lean towards McBride, mainly off of the overall opportunity share that he's going to be implicated for, on top of the potential he's going to be able to potentially even score. Now, obviously, he hasn't scored a receiving touchdown this year, but again, just off of baseline of production, touchdowns are very difficult to predict, if not impossible, so I'll just lean towards McBride. Terry R. sends in a question, says, full PPR, Mooney, Debo, or JSN? I'd rather play Debo out of the group number 1, Mooney 2, JSN 3. Next question, McPherson or Anders Carlson? I'd rather play Anders Carlson. Thank you. Carlos Laurie sends in a question, says, I'm torn on not playing Mahomes despite him owning the Raiders. Owning the Raiders? I'm sorry, did Mahomes not lose to the Raiders on Christmas last season? I'm pretty sure Christmas Day I was bedridden with my voice completely lost. I don't know if you guys remember that. I was horribly sick last season. Like it was week 16. Last time I checked, that was not a great game. And yeah, if you want to play Mahomes, go for it. That has got to be your prerogative. I'm not going to be suggesting that. That is just, listen, I hope for Mahomes to play well. I really do. But he hasn't pulled anything lately. He's just like a 10 to 12 point player the last couple weeks here. 10, 12, 13. No upside as of late. Big Al 9 says Devontae Smith or Romeo Dobbs. That's a really good question. Let me see where I have Devontae Smith and Dobbs in comparison. So on screen, in terms of the half PPR scoring format, we know that we have Romeo Dobbs ahead of him. I just want to check in a full PPR if I've got it changed. Nope. I still do have Romeo Dobbs ahead of him in a full PPR. So that would be my suggestion, half or full Romeo. Thank you. Sharps JD says, good morning. In a full PPR, start Chase Brown, Ricky Pearsall, or Jackson Smith-Njigba with no DK Metcalf playing. Okay. So Chase Brown and Ricky Pearsall are pretty much going to be the two. Let's see here, because I do have Pearsall ahead of JSN, even with DK out. So it's just a matter of where do I have Chase Brown? So as it currently stands, I have Ricky Pearsall 1, Jackson Smith 2, and Chase Brown 3 in a full PPR. That's the way that I'd go about it. So Pearsall is my suggestion. Ryan sends in a follow-up. Says in a 12-man full PPR, 3 wide receivers. Start 3 wide receivers and 1 flex out of Debo, Dell, Mooney, JSN, Mostert, Tillman, McMillan, and Franklin. Thanks again, bro. No problem, Ryan. Okay, so of the available that you have, obviously we're starting Debo, Dell, and Mooney. Those are very comfortable plays. As for JSN, Mostert, Tillman, Frank, yeah, I'm just going to play JSN in the flex. So let's play all 4 wide receivers, Debo, Dell, Mooney, and JSN. Fire them up, Ryan. Thank you. Troy Anderson says, just offered a trade, Mason and Devontae Smith for A.J. Brown. If you are getting A.J. Brown, I would immediately take that deal. Thank you very much. Again, do not forget that the 49ers go on bye week next week, and then they are implied to have Christian McCaffrey potentially returning in week 10. So this could be the final game in which we see Jordan Mason at a full capacity within this backfield. I would take A.J. Brown there, Troy. Bodie Derby says in a full PPR, pick 2. What is that? D-Hop, McMillan, Olave, Marvin, or Dobbs. Yeah, out of those available, Bodie, the favorite plays of the bunch would be Olave number 1. Sorry, Dobbs number 1, Romeo Dobbs, and then followed by Olave number 2. So those are the 2 that I would suggest. So that's the way that I'm going about it. Dobbs and Olave are my favorite. Thank you. Brian Keebler sends in a follow-up, says, do you also play/do Dynasty content? I do not do Dynasty content. I'm purely just on this channel, redraft. Or, potential I wouldn't even suggest that I do basketball content. I don't even do that. So it's mainly just redraft. That's it. That is my expertise. I wouldn't even say expertise because, again, I don't know if you can be an expert of predicting the unpredictable. Is that an actual thing? I'd say it's probably not likely. I'd assume that everyone's accuracy is pretty shoddy when it comes to the unpredictability of football and variable, instances. But anyway, continuing on. In a 12-man full PPR, start 3 wide receivers. Should I pair Mooney and Addison with Mahomes or try to get Hurts? Do I try to pair Mooney and Addison with Mahomes and try to get... Yes, absolutely. Yeah, immediately. If you can get Jalen Hurts in this circumstance, giving away that would be an automatic in my mind. Brian, thank you. Fall sends in a question. Says Marvin Harrison, Dowdle, Kincaid at flex for floor. If we're looking for floor overall production in a full PPR between Dowdle, Kincaid, and Marvin Harrison, I'd assume that your floor of production exists with either Kincaid or Dowdle. I'd probably lean towards playing Dowdle in that circumstance ever so slightly. Lou sends in a question. Says PPR start 1. Hubbard, Pearsall, Mostert, Shakir, Sutton. As of those available, Pearsall and Shakir are the number 1 and 2 combos. Pearsall is my suggested number 1. Sam sends in a question. Says, good morning, Andrew. I need 2 flex spots in a full PPR. Pollard, Marvin Harrison, McMillan, Mostert. Of those available, the 2 highest ranked that I currently have are let me see where I have Mostert in comparison. Mostert. Where art thou? Where is Colonel Mostert? Okay, so as I currently have it in a full PPR, the 2 highest ranked would be Marvin Harrison alongside of Pollard there, Sam. Thank you. Daniel Russell says, hey, buddy, love the stream. Thank you very much. Full PPR, start 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, Kamara, Mason, Pollard. Okay, Dobbs, Flowers, Bateman, Coleman, or Tolbert. Good luck this week. Okay, thanks very much. Appreciate it. Let's see here, Daniel Russell. Of the available running backs, I'm playing Mason alongside of Kamara in a full PPR. And then as for your 2 wide receivers this week, I'm playing Dobbs and Flowers. If, in fact, Flowers is not available to play against Cleveland because of his ankle in the pregame warmups, they designate him out. You would then be pivoting to playing Bateman because, again, he would be expected to, kind of pick up the slack in that scenario. So Dobbs, Flowers, Kamara, Mason with the pivoting option of Bateman. Thank you. Fish Clinic sends in a question. Says full PPR, Keenan Allen or D-Hop or Bigsby or Pollard. Okay, so Keenan Allen is preferred over D-Hop. Bigsby versus Pollard, I would rather take Pollard in my lineup. So Pollard and Keenan Allen are my suggestions. Thank you. Nick Q3435 says flex one in a full PPR. Jonathan Taylor, James Conner, or Jaden Reed. In a full PPR scoring format, I'm fairly certain I have Jaden Reed ranked the highest. Let me confirm this on my rankings. Jaden Reed sits there. He is ahead of the rest. So Jaden Reed would be number 1, James Conner 2, Jonathan Taylor 3 in that exact order. I understand that he's had low volume of opportunity as of late, but looking at the overall potential of this matchup against Jacksonville quite literally cannot stop opposing slot receiving options. The vast majority of the overall routes that Jaden Reed runs is out of the slot position. They play about 35 to 40% man coverage in Jacksonville, which again is perfect for a slot receiving option. There's a reason why a lot of wide receivers in this circumstance have torched Jacksonville. So I'm leaning towards playing Reed, especially considering I expect at least 3, if not 4 passing touchdowns from Jordan Love today. Thank you. Luke C sends in a question, says PPR start 1, Pop Douglas or Cedric Tillman? I'd rather play Pop Douglas. Thank you. Next question, rank 1 through 3, Ladd, Olave, Pearsall. Number 1 would be Pearsall. Number 2 is Olave. Number 3 would be Ladd. Next question, Garrett Wilson or BTJ? PPR trade. If I'm picking one for rest of season, I'd probably rather have BTJ. But if I'm picking one for this week, I'd rather have Garrett Wilson. Next, Deontay Johnson, Kareem Hunt, Bigsby for Devontae Adams. Deontay Johnson, Kareem Hunt, Bigsby for Devontae Adams. If you don't need the running back depth, I'm willing to make the move. But again, it's only if you don't need the depth. Appreciate it. Top Gun Fins says, start 2, Dell, Coleman, Chase Brown. Out of those 3, I'm playing Dell and I'm playing Chase Brown. Thank you very much, Top Gun. Duro Modi says, good morning, Andrew. Let's get these dubs today. Absolutely. Let's try, let's hope for some actual solid high-scoring games. That's all we ask for. In comparison to last week where we have the Giants scoring 3 points. I mean, what a disaster, right? But anyway, start McMillan, McConkey, Watson, or Bateman. Out of those available options, the way in which I have it ordered, number 1 would be Bateman, number 2, McMillan, number 3, let's say, for example, if it's a full PPR, it'd be number 3 would be McConkey. If it was a half PPR, number 3 would be Watson. That's the way I'd approach it. Thank you. Nathan Smith says full PPR, Jalen Tolbert and Pearsall are both available in my league. If I start Debo and he doesn't play, which do I grab from waivers to stream? I'd rather stream Pearsall because, again, if Debo is going to miss, which, again, I don't expect him to, but if, in fact, he was going to, that would implicate Ricky Pearsall to get all of the targets outside of anything that, Kittle would be able to absorb. Let's say Kittle gets 10 targets. If they throw the ball 30 times today, just imagine how much upside Pearsall would have in that circumstance. Mr. Meeks sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, Bigsby with ETN out or Rachaad White? In a full PPR, I'd rather play Rachaad White. Thank you. Logan Dubs. Actually, let me check here really quickly. Let me confirm that I actually have that ranked as such. Yes, that is in fact the case. I have Rachaad White 2 spots ahead of Bigsby if ETN is out in a full PPR. Okay, moving on to Logan Dubs, who says, in a 12-team, I need 2 flexes. I have Sutton, Dowdle, Shakir, Wicks, Pearsall. Okay, got it. I have Love, Jacobs, Mixon, Hill, Higgins, Kittle, Kmet, Trey Palmer. Any 2-for-1 trade-ups. Okay, so trades we could talk about in a future circumstance. As for setting your lineup right now, Trey Palmer should not start. T. Higgins is probably going to miss. So if we're going to play Love, Jacobs, Mixon, Hill would play alongside of Shakir as the wide receiver 2. And then you would play Kmet at tight end, and then you would start Sutton as your flex. So Sutton and Shakir should be implicated to play over Trey Palmer and Higgins. Thank you. Rockout says, if Higgins doesn't play Dowdle or pick up Yoshivas / Trey Palmer. I'd honestly rather play Dowdle. Cowboys 9511 says, can you walk me through starting Diggs over Reed? Yeah, it's just purely a matter of the success that we have seen purely from CJ Stroud against the Indianapolis Colts, and the Indianapolis Colts defensive struggles in terms of stopping anything as a whole. CJ Stroud in the last 3 games against the Colts this season thus far, week 1 and last year, every single game, 230 plus passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. I would assume at home in Houston. If Anthony Richardson does not show up, I can only imagine this game to be a blowout, if not something even worse, which again could be Anthony Richardson getting pulled. So when I look at Diggs, the overall target share he's been utilized with, the overall usage of him on the outside, like last week was just a complete disaster. I'd assume more of what we saw in the week against the New England Patriots implicated for this week, which again, considering there's less target kind of competition for Diggs in comparison to Reed, Reed has to compete with Dobbs, Kraft, Wicks, and Watson. Like there's so much more competition implied there that it makes it a little bit more difficult of a start. Trevor Melville sends in a question, says full PPR, wondering who to start from the last flex spot. We have Olave, Ramondre Stevenson, Wan'Dale Robinson, or Tucker Kraft. Okay, or Wicks. Let me see where I have Tucker Kraft in comparison to Olave. I think that's pretty much the two that I'd prefer to play in this situation. As of right now, in terms of where I have Tucker Kraft in comparison to Olave, I in fact have him higher. So I'd go Tucker Kraft number 1, Chris Olave number 2, Wan'Dale Robinson 3, Dontavion Wicks 4, Ramondre 5 in that order. So again, Tucker Kraft would be the number 1, Trevor. Thank you. Evan Brown says in a half PPR, Bowers or Waddle? I'd rather play Bowers. Thank you. Frank Grillo says in a full PPR, McLaurin, Bigsby, Olave, McLaurin, Bigsby, Dowdle, or Rachaad White. Okay, so you kind of copied a couple of the names there. Give me a wide receiver and a flex. Yeah, as of right now, out of those available options, McLaurin starts at wide receiver regardless of the situation or whether or not Daniels is active. And in your flex out of the bunch, probably ends up either being Olave or Rachaad White. Let me see where I have Olave in comparison. Olave sits there. Rachaad White, where art thou? Rachaad White sits... Where the heck is his name? Yeah, Olave would be the number 2. So McLaurin and Olave are my suggestions, Frank Grillo. Thank you. Niner86 says, half PPR pick 3. Mason, Gibbs, Achane, Cook, Hubbard. Of those available, Mason, Gibbs, and Achane are my starts. Thank you. Sebastian Gutierrez says, in a full PPR, trade Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, Brock Bowers, Rachaad White for Waddle, Bigsby, Hunt, Kincaid. No. I'd rather have the Kenneth Walker, Bowers, and Rachaad White side rest of the season. Kareem Hunt will eventually disappear. If you do not have Pacheco, it's not worth it in that circumstance. Kenneth Walker is arguably a top 5 running back rest of the way. I mean, again, in a full PPR, if he gets himself consistent receiving upside, it is very, very, very high upside in terms of his potential baseline of production, especially in solid matchups. Bowers is the best tight end in football right now. Rachaad White is on the up and up. I'd keep the Kenneth Walker side. Thank you. Rico Gaming says, sup, Andrew? I need an RB2 and a flex and a full PPR. Very well. RB2, do we play Rachaad White or Ray Davis or Jaylen Warren? It's Rachaad White by a vast majority of overall ranking spots. So, yeah, Rachaad White, PPR. I love the overall workload he'll potentially get. Bucky Irving, obviously a little bit banged up with the turf toe. So, yeah, Rachaad White's the play. Flex, McConkey, Bateman, Wan'Dale Robinson, Shakir. Out of those available, Shakir is my suggestion in a full PPR. Wan'Dale Robinson will be after him. Nick Noren sends in a question, says, need to start one in the flex in a non-PPR scoring format. We have Pickens, Garrett Wilson, James Cook. As of those 3 options, I would play James Cook against Seattle's terrible run-stopping defense. Long-time listener, first-time caller, huh? Good one, Nick. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Andrew Oliver sends in a question, says, in a half PPR, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a flex, we have running backs available, Achane, Harris, Brian Robinson. Of those 3 available, Achane and Najee Harris would be the number 1, 2. I'm not interested in playing Brian Robinson or Pollard ahead of them. Again, the rankings are on screen for a half PPR. For those of you who are just joining us this morning, welcome. Again, the rankings that are right there designate our half PPR rankings as of interpositional top 36 running backs, wide receivers, top 16 quarterbacks, tight ends, and of course, top 12 kickers and defenses. So if you guys are wondering, that can answer a lot of the overall questions you may have. Now, as for your 2 wide receivers in flex, Marvin Harrison, JSN, Diggs, Higgins, and Flowers. Again, under the assumption that Higgins is not available today, which again, we are slowly but surely trending in that direction, Diggs and Flowers would be your number 1 and 2 wide receiver options, Andrew Oliver. If in fact Flowers is not available as well, you would play Diggs and JSN. But in terms of your flex play this week, we're going to go with, again, so this is the way that I go about it. Achane and Harris are automatics at RB. You would want to play Diggs and Higgins, but Higgins, if in fact inactive, you would go to Flowers. If Flowers is inactive, you would go to JSN. And then in your flex, you're playing Brian Robinson. Thank you. AJ sends in a question, says, forgot full PPR, was thinking flex, Otten, or Kincaid at tight end. Yeah, I'm going to lean towards playing Otten over Kincaid. Thank you. Max says, full PPR. Pick 1, Pop Douglas, Cedric Tillman, or Ladd McConkey. Out of those 3, I'll play Pop Douglas today. Thank you. Flawless says, pick 1 and a half PPR, Tank Ferguson or Ridley. I hate them all. I mean, I don't hate Ferguson or Tank Bigsby. I think Ridley's the one that I do not have much, potential for upside, kind of assuming in terms of his overall potential, considering the quarterback play, the offense, the structure, everything just does not work well. So honestly, I don't hate any of these options. They could all theoretically still have themselves solid weeks. As for the two preferred between Tank and Ferguson, let's say it's a half PPR. Let me see where I have Fergie in comparison to Bigsby. As of right now, I have Bigsby ranked higher, so Bigsby would be the suggestion in a half PPR flawless. Thank you. RLF says half PPR, need one wide receiver and one flex. Waddle, Dell, Devontae Smith, or Bigsby. Okay, the one wide receiver that I'm playing is Waddle, and then the flex that I'm playing is Dell. Those are the two that I'm leaning towards. Thank you. Elseway says questions in the chat. Okay. Gildan Warrior says questions in the chat. Okay, so Elseway, Gildan Warrior, let's hope you guys' questions are in the chat. If they are not, we are moving on. Elseway, nothing in the chat. Gildan Warrior, nothing in the chat. We will wait until you guys type that in. Elseway, Gildan Warrior. Okay. Hopefully you guys will type that in. Appreciate it. Continuing on. We move on to the next questions that were sent in. Scrolling back up until we find ourselves answering Patrick C., who says, who do I start between Kyler and Purdy this week? I'd rather play Purdy. Thank you. Mr. Noodle says, need one, flex full PPR, Mark Andrews, Sterling Shepard, Tolbert, Vidal. Thanks, brother. Between those bunch, I'm going to play Mark Andrews. Thank you. Chef Salt says, full PPR flex, Myers, Sutton, Judy, or Roma Dunze. Out of those available options, I'm playing Cortland Sutton against the Carolina Panthers defense that cannot stop a soul. So whether it's on the ground or through the air, we would assume implied potential for upside. In the case of Sutton, who has scored over 10 fantasy points in 3 of the last 5 games. Last week was completely shut down. Didn't even get a singular target. But again, if we look at it as a whole, I think he'll get far more implementation within the upcoming approach. Because again, the coverage on the outside isn't Lattimore. Christian Jackson sends in a question, says, full PPR, start 2 running backs and 2 flex out of Gibbs, HN, Mason, Reed, BTJ, Amari, Waddle, Hubbard. Thanks. Okay, no problem. So of the available, Gibbs and HN and Mason are auto starts. I'd probably follow up by also saying that so is Reed. So those are the 4 that I'm going with. Gibbs, HN, Mason, and Reed. Thank you, Christian Jackson. Gary sends in a question, says, in a full PPR, flex 2, Brian Robinson, Kamara, DK, Debo, Pearsall. A lot of really good options here. I don't expect DK Metcalf to play. So if I'm going to start 2 of these potential options in a full PPR, I'm leaning towards playing Kamara and Debo Samuel. As for your next question, Purdy or Jaden Daniels, considering Purdy plays in the afternoon, does he play? Yeah, he plays on Sunday Night Football. Considering that is the case, you can wait until Jaden Daniels. If Jaden Daniels is active, you would play him over Purdy. Otherwise, you pivot to playing Purdy on Sunday Night Football. Next question, Otten or Ferguson? I prefer to play Ferguson there. And then your final question, starting okay, that's not even a question. It's just a statement, starting Barkley, Mason, Gills. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, so those will be the suggestions. Kamara, Debo, and Jaden Daniels, if in fact he's available. Otherwise, pivot to Purdy. Otherwise, after that, we have Ferguson over Otten. Thank you. Beto sends in a question, says, full PPR, I need 1 flex and a second defense, okay? For the flex, Tank Bigsby, Jaden Reed, Brock Bowers, or Chuba Hubbard. Let me see where I have Reed and Bowers. I think my Bowers actually might be ranked higher. Brock Bowers in a full PPR. Oh, that's a half PPR. Sorry, let's go to full PPR. Okay, so in a full PPR, I legitimately have Jaden Reed as my number 19 and Brock Bowers as my number 20 overall flex player. So, toss up a coin. Literally at that point. I do prefer Reed. I have Brock Bowers literally on his tail, back-to-back in the same tier. I don't mind playing one over the other. I have no consideration of Bigsby or Hubbard in this scenario. It's one of these two, either the tight end or one of these two. I don't know why Brock Bowers isn't playing. You'd have to have Kittle to not play Brock Bowers at tight end. So, yeah, that's the way that I go about it. Now, as for your second question, second defense, Seattle, Cleveland, or Arizona? If we have to play a second defense today, I'm more inclined to play Arizona. I'm not playing Seattle, and I'm not playing Cleveland. Thank you. Moving on to Mr. Burns, says half PPR, Bateman, Pearsall, or Bigsby. Pick 2. In a half PPR, I'm playing Bigsby and Pearsall. Thank you. All right, let's go to the live chat and see if Gildan Warrior typed in anything. Gildan says, hey, Andrew, I'm in a half PPR league. Need help in the flex. I have Waddle, Garrett Wilson, Brian Robinson, and Javonte. Out of those available, the flex would be Javonte Williams. That is my suggestion, Gildan Warrior. Thank you. All right, moving on to El Sway. Let's see if he typed in the chat. El Sway. Nothing from Sway? Sway? Anything? Nothing from elsewhere. Okay, very well. Moving on. Alrighty, continuing on with the questions that were sent in my direction. We continue with... We took care of Mr. Burns there. We move on to Smell My Fingers, who says, in a full PPR, Dell, Pearsall, Tillman, I need 2 with T. Higgins and DK out. Yeah, I would lean towards playing Dell and Pearsall there. Thank you. Let me see here. If I go to my Yahoo Fantasy, I'm curious. Do they already have on Yahoo... so T. Higgins on Yahoo Fantasy right now is already designated with 0 points. So even though they don't have a out designation for him, even the overall projection system expects him not to play. So I would assume that is probably a bad sign for his potential today. Yeah, that's probably not a good sign. Let's see. Okay, I got to figure out who I want to play in the flex in that league. Okay, continuing on. Sean Anthony says, in a full PPR start, Ferguson or Njoku? I'd rather play Njoku. Why Yahoo projection Ferguson higher? I have no clue. Yahoo, again, do not trust. Okay, if you guys haven't learned already, do not trust projections from websites. Okay, they do not take very many things into account. They have a projection system that was established in the preseason and then very much so barely adjusts over the course of the year. So don't trust their overall projections. Literally take a picture of your projections this week and then see what happens after the fact. And I guarantee you they don't even look remotely the same. Abe sends in a question, says full PPR, sit 1. Mooney, Pearsall, Chase Brown. Between those 3 and a full PPR, I'm probably sitting Chase Brown, to be honest. Thank you. Juiced Prop says full PPR, 10-man super flex, start 2 wide receivers and start 2 flex. I don't see any names juiced. Hopefully you typed it in the chat. If you didn't, we're going to have to move on. Juiced. There's nothing attached to it. There was no players in the message. It just said start 2 flex and start 2 wide receivers. We can come back if you want to type in the chat, but if not, then we will continue moving on. Elseway, did you end up typing anything in the chat? Elseway, there you go. I see it. Elseway says, wide receiver 2 is Dobbs, Mooney. Okay. RB1 and... Okay, so wide receiver 2, Dobbs or Mooney. Between those 2, I'd rather play Dobbs. RB1 and 2, Monty, Connor, Hunt. I'd rather play Connor and Hunt this week. And then leftover, Dobbs, Mooney, Montgomery, Connor, Hunt. Kicker, no Seibert this week. Unless Jaden Daniels is playing, I don't want to play Seibert. Okay, so to answer your question elsewhere, Dobbs would be your wide receiver 2. Connor and Hunt would be your RB1 and 2, and Montgomery would be your flex. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so we took care of that. Let's see, did Juiced end up typing anything? Nope, we'll wait for Juiced. Either way, continuing on. Alrighty, to the next question ahead. We have Real Eyes 00 says, I need a flex in a full PPR, super flex league. McMillan, Pearsall, or Debo. Out of those 3, I'm playing Debo. Thank you. John Garcia sends in a question, nothing attached. John, do me a favor, type your question in the chat right now before I get into the live stream or into the live chat. Number 1, Stunna says, flex 1, Tank Bigsby, Lockett, Shakir, Sutton, Hopkins, or Dowdle. If it's a half PPR, I'm comfortable rolling with Bigsby. If it's a full PPR, I'm rolling with Shakir. Thank you. Moving on to Crystal Richardson, who says, gamble with Cousins over Purdy. I don't know if it's a gamble per se, but if you don't want to play Cousins, just roll with Purdy. I think they're both really great plays within the overall matchups this week. Dan Rick says, in a full PPR, start Murray, Tua, or Kirk. Again, I prefer Kirk number 1, Tua 2, and Tua 2, and Murray 3. Thank you. Levi Golding sends in a question, nothing attached to it. So we need John Garcia to type in the live chat, and we need Golding. Or sorry, not Golding. Yeah. Levi Golding to type in the live chat. Thank you. So let's go to the live chat. Let's see if Golding is in here. Nothing yet. And then we need John Garcia. John Garcia says, missed super chat earlier. Which do you prefer, Mooney or Pearsall? As of right now, I prefer Mooney. I already have Bijan and Koo. I'm worried of a low-scoring Falcons game. A low-scoring Falcons game would be interesting. Yeah, I'm not so concerned about that. I'm more of, in fact, concerned in which they take such an early lead where they don't run or they don't do anything but run the ball in the second half. So if that's what you imply on a low-scoring game, then sure, I could subscribe to that idea. But for right now, I ever so prefer Mooney in the matchup. Again, that secondary is in tatters. They're in shambles. Moving on, let's see if Levi sent in a question to follow it up. Levi, anything? All right, Levi, we'll wait until you end up sending that in. Continuing on. Scroll back up here. We had a question that came in from Jared, excuse me. Jared says, start Flowers, Mooney, or Shakir in a full PPR. If Flowers is active and ready to go, he would start. Otherwise, you pivot to Mooney. Thank you. Jason Hosier says, would you trade Montgomery for Tyreek Hill? Absolutely. Immediately, I would make that trade. Like, it would have already been done yesterday. Thank you. Seymour Cars says, half PPR. Let's see here. Flex. Marvin Harrison or Najee Harris? I'd rather play Najee Harris. Thank you. Eber sends in a question. Eber De La Hoya says, better flex, Kincaid or Demario Douglas? In a half PPR, Kincaid, again, he doesn't really have... I'd rather just play Demario Douglas, to be honest. I think it's a pretty negative game script in that situation. Joe Lozano says, need 2 in the flex, full PPR. Ramondre, Demario Douglas, Ricky Pearsall, McMillan, or Hunter Henry. Out of those available options in a full PPR, I want to see where I have Douglas in comparison to Henry, because it's one of those two probably. Let's see. Henry, full PPR. Hunter Henry sits there. Demario Douglas sits there. And Pearsall would be there. So yeah, Pearsall and Demario Douglas would be the 1-2 combo as of right now. Otherwise, it would be Pearsall and Henry. Next question, it would be Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels. If Jaden Daniels is active in the game, I play him. Thank you. Brandon McDaniel sends in a follow-up. Okay, Brandon, I got to your question finally, because I wanted you to type it in the chat, but again, I'll take a super chat either way to answer the question. Tracy Jr. or Chubb? As of right now, I have Tyrone Tracy Jr. ahead of Chubb, regardless of scoring format. I think the only time I would ever play Chubb is maybe in a standard league, but even then, I don't really trust it. Rest of season, Pop Douglas or Pearsall? I'd rather take the risk on Pearsall. Thank you. Matthew Wallace sends in a question. Says, without Higgins, Olave, or Douglas in a half PPR, I'd rather play Olave. And then Los Angeles defense is scary. Thanks. I mean, not really. Their starting cornerbacks are pretty beat up there, so I'm okay with Olave there. It's more like the thing that's scary is starting Rattler or trusting Rattler, but I expect Olave to be solid. The S-Box says, starting Bigsby or Irving? I'd rather start Bigsby. Starting Goff or Love? I'd rather start Love. Thank you. Sam Alden says, full PPR, Darnell Mooney, Ricky Pearsall, Bigsby. Give me Darnell Mooney there. Number 1, Pearsall 2, Bigsby 3. X-Man XRP sends in a question. Says, in a half PPR, pick one between Flowers, Dell, and JSN. Okay, so between those 3, Flowers, if in fact he is active, is number 1. Otherwise, you pivot to Dell, and that would be the approach. Also, should I trade Pickens for Dowdle or Ramondre? No, I'd rather have Pickens rest of the year, by far and away. Ramondre is not someone I'm trading for. He is somebody that I'm either dropping off of my team outright or I'm trading. Thank you. Mr. Burns sends in a question, nothing attached to it. Mr. Burns, hopefully you type in the live chat sooner rather than later so I can get to it. We're going to go and see if Levi Golding sent in anything in the live chat. Nothing from Levi. Okay, very well. Let's see here if we got anything from Juiced. Juiced, anything? Nothing from Juiced. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's erase all these names. And then we'll look up Mr. Burns in the chat. Mr. Burns says, if Flowers doesn't play Pearsall or Bateman, I think I'd still lean towards... Ooh, you know what? That's a really good question. Would I move up Bateman a significant margin to where I'm playing him ahead of Pearsall? I would probably venture to say... if there's no Flowers available, I'd be okay playing Bateman ahead of Pearsall. I'd be okay with it. Do I love it? Not really. Because quite frankly, I think at that point, it's just like, if he doesn't score a touchdown, we're screwed. Either way, whichever way we start him, he has to score a touchdown or get a huge yardage count. So yeah, for right now, leaning towards the idea. Dan the God says, Andrew, did you see my live chat? I mean, I see that one, brother. Do I play Bateman ahead of Pearsall? If it's my team, I probably would in a half PPR. Alrighty, let's go ahead, scroll back up into the super chats. Let's see here. Old J Running says, just dropped McLaughlin for Lutz. You have Lutz ranked higher, but concerned. Keep or pick up Bates instead? No, keep Lutz. Again, 3 of the last 4 games in which the Denver Broncos have won, he has scored over 10 fantasy points. Huff and Puff sends in a question. Says, good morning. Full PPR, Montgomery or BTJ? Thanks, Andrew. Let's see here. If I'm looking at Montgomery's ranking in comparison to BTJ, I have him ahead of BTJ. Thank you. Moving on to a question from Tony VHTX101. It says, greetings and salutations, Andrew. In a full PPR flex, Jonathan Taylor or Devontae Smith? I'd rather play Jonathan Taylor. Thank you. Big Drew 93 says, in a full PPR flex, who would you trade Chase Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, or Cortland Sutton? Okay, it says flex. Who would you start? Not trade. I'm an idiot. I don't know why I read trade. Who would you start? Chase Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, or Cortland Sutton? Out of those three options, I would start Chase Brown. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so of the available notifications that I just received, T. Higgins will not play in Week 8. That is done. According to Rappaport, DeAndre Hopkins will play significant amount of snaps in Week 8. Rappaport can absolutely shove it. Flowers is active. Hill is active. Okay. ETN is inactive. Yep. Okay, cool. Now, the reason why I said that Rappaport can shove it is because he is not someone that you can actually rely upon in terms of his overall word. Remember, if you guys remember not too long ago, when I say not too long ago, literally Thursday, what did Ian Rappaport say before the game? Puka Nacua is going to be playing at a limited capacity. Surely, buddy. Yeah. Luckily, I have a brain in between my ears that has me rank Puka significantly higher than whatever bullshit these reporters sent through. So do not trust Rappaport, guys. Trust me, it is not a path that we want to be taking. All right, continuing on. We have a question from Fernando Perez. Says full PPR. Chase Brown, Rashad White, or Olave in a full PPR. It's either Olave or Rashad White between those two. Let me see where I have Olave. Olave sits there. Rashad White is below him, and Chase Brown's below. Yeah, so Olave would be the suggestion out of those three. Fernando, thank you. John Garcia says, with T. Higgins out, Mooney, Wicks, or Pearsall, I'd go with Mooney number 1, Pearsall 2, Wicks number 3. I already have Bijan and yeah, so we already answered this earlier. So yeah, we'll take Mooney there. If you want to go ahead and just avoid having 3 Falcons this week, then you can play Pearsall. I don't have a problem with that. Dan Seck says, pick 4. Devontae Smith, Olave, Chase Brown, Javonte Williams, Ingrams, and Bowers. Cool. So of those available, the Javonte Williams is number 1. Bowers is number 2. And then I would go with Chase Brown 3 and Devontae Smith 4. Thank you. Moving on to Andrew Montoya, who says half PPR Pickens or Pollard. I'd rather play Pickens. Thank you. Retro Gandalf says in a full PPR, Mooney or Bigsby, I'd rather play Mooney. Twisted Folk says half PPR, 2 wide receivers in a flex, looking for high ceilings. I have St. Brown, Jaden Reed, BTJ, DJ Moore, and Achane. I'm leaning towards DJ Moore, Jaden Reed, and BTJ. The fact that you don't have him on your roster, again, it's against my religion to do something of that nature. If it was me and I was setting this lineup for my team, I'd play Amon-Ra St. Brown alongside of Jaden Reed, and I would play Achane in the flex. In a half PPR. Thank you. Jose Rodriguez says pick 2. Garrett Wilson, Jacobs, and Dobbins. I would play both running backs. Give me Jacobs and Dobbins. Thank you. Nick. Let's see here. Nick Demis says, in a full PPR, sit 2 running backs. Kareem Hunt, Jonathan Taylor, Javonte Williams, Mason Connor. Out of those available, the 3 that I'm starting are Javonte, Mason, and Hunt. I'm sitting Connor and I'm sitting Taylor. Abdi Mohammed sends in a question, says, Cousins or Stroud? I prefer to play Stroud this week. Kamara, Rashad White, Keenan Allen, full PPR, pick 2. Give me both of the running backs. Give me Kamara and Rashad White there. Thank you. Ocho says half PPR, Tracy or Irving. I'd rather play Tyrone Tracy Jr. Also, Shakir or Bateman. In a half PPR, where do I have them ranked on screen? Half PPR on screen, I have it as Bateman as my number 34 and Shakir is my number 28. So Shakir would be the preferred of the 2. Thank you. Let's see here. Preemie Boy sends in a question, says, need an RB2 and a flex. Derrick Henry as my RB1, HN, Walker, or Hunt. The way that I'd go about it, especially if it's a full PPR, I'm going with Walker and HN as that RB2 flex. Thank you. HFL 5864 says a follow-up for last question. Full PPR, Ferguson over Lockett in the flex, even with DK most likely out. Yes. Thinking Lockett's going to go get more looks? Yeah, he might get more looks, but I just don't like the overall matchup against Buffalo secondary. So if you want to roll with it, I don't have an issue with it. They're very closely ranked within my overall system. But I do prefer Ferguson at the moment. Dan's the God says Adams or Debo. I would rather play Adams over Debo. Also, for Devontae Smith, Evans, and Swift, I'm 3 and 4. I'm so confused as to what this question turned into. So, are you saying trade one for 3? If I'm trading one of those 2 wide receivers, like let's say I'm picking either Adams or Debo to send for Devontae Smith, Evans, and Swift in return, I don't care which one. I'd honestly just send away Debo at this point. That's fine by me. I don't want to deal with the pneumonia. All right, let's see here. Jawan sends in a question. Says Chuba Hubbard or Yoshi? I don't want to. If it's a full PPR, I'd just play Yoshi at this point, to be honest. I don't want to play Chuba Hubbard. Antonio Garcia sends in a question. Says full PPR, Dell or McLaurin. If in fact Jaden Daniels is available, I would play McLaurin. But again, as of right now, considering the Houston Texans playing the morning slate, and I don't have a confirmation as of Jaden Daniels' current status, I'm going to suggest Dell. So yeah, I'm probably going to lean towards Dell. If you want to take the risk and roll with McLaurin regardless of who plays quarterback for Washington, that is, your approach. Alexander's channel sends in a question, says Zay Flowers, Waddle, BTJ, or AJ Brown, Reed, sit one. If I'm sitting one of the bunch, Zay Flowers is the sit. I'd rather play Reed, AJ Brown, BTJ, and Waddle. Nick L says, yo, Andrew, happy birthday. Thank you. Questions in the live chat. Okay, so there's a couple questions that are in the live chat. We got to look up Nick L. And then I got to scroll back up here. And I got to find the other questions that didn't have anything attached to it. I'm going to scroll back to him. Mr. Burns. I don't know if I did answer that question. Never mind. Scrolling back up, we also had Levi Golding. Let's see if Levi sent in anything. Okay, I think that's basically the only 2 that didn't have anything attached that I can remember off the top of my head. And we'll keep it moving. So let's go into the live chat and see if those questions are there. If they are not, I'm just going to quickly move on. Nothing from Levi. Nick L, anything in the chat? Nick L says, worth dropping McLaughlin for Dicker? Yes. And keep Dicker rest of season, or just, no, I would drop him. I'd make the swap. Again, without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, the offense for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers should be implicated for less points. Also, risk playing Tua over Kyler. I don't know if that's a risk, but I guess that's your approach. One more. I feel like even if Flowers is active, McLaurin is more consistent. The issue that I have with McLaurin has nothing to do with consistency. The issue that I have with McLaurin is I have no clue whether or not Jaden Daniels is playing. That is the whole contingency. If he's playing, I'd rather play him over Flowers, right? That's the only thing. Thank you. Appreciate it, Nick. Alrighty, continuing on with the next question on hand. Okay, let's see here. What is this chat summary? Auto-generated experiment. Quality viewers are asked to rank. What? What the heck was that? What the fuck was that? Okay, anyway, continuing on. We had a question that came in from Juan Vaca Ramirez, who says, BTJ or Javonte? I'd rather play Javonte Williams. Thank you. J Holly 203 says, Brian Robinson, Najee Harris, McLaurin, or Bigsby? As of right now, considering the whole situation, I'd probably play both running backs. I'd probably go with Najee and Brian Robinson. If by the afternoon we get into a position in which we get a guarantee that Jaden Daniels is in fact starting, I'd probably play both of the Washington Commanders there, and I'd bench Najee. Romeo Connor says, in a 12-team half PPR, pick one for the flex. Terry, what does that say? Ramondre or Dowdle? Yeah, Terry regardless. I don't care who's playing a quarterback. I'd rather play Terry over Dowdle and Ramondre. Papa Bless says, would you trade Flowers and Brian Robinson for London and JSN? No. Unless you have a ridiculous volume of running back depth, giving away a running back that is scoring about 14 points per game in a half PPR, full PPR, just for JSN doesn't seem like something that is fair in my mind. I'd rather just keep what you have. Tony R481 says, in a full PPR, pick two. Tank, Najee, Waddle, Chase Brown. Out of those available in a full PPR format, I think Waddle's a for sure play. Then it's just between Tank, Dell, and Najee Harris. Let me see where I have Dell in comparison. So Dell in comparison to Najee Harris, I currently do have, what the heck is Najee Harris? Why can't I see Najee's name? Am I blind? Control F Najee. That's a half PPR. That's why. Okay, got it. So in a full PPR, I would in fact play Tank Dell and Jalen Waddle, Tony. Thank you. Shane sends in a question. Says in a half PPR, Tolbert versus Tillman. Between those two, let me check where I have them ranked. Half PPR. As of right now, I have Tillman as my number 40, and I have Tolbert as my number 47. So Cedric Tillman would be the play there. Next question, Anthony Richardson versus Baker. I have Anthony Richardson ranked higher. No joke. I have Anthony Richardson as my number 17. I have Baker as my number 20. Thank you. Moving on to a question that comes in from Niner86. Says half PPR flex. Achan, Neighbors, Cook, thanks. I think we answered this earlier, but maybe you sent it in again. I'm playing both. Well, no, I'm actually not playing both those running backs. I'm playing Neighbors alongside of Achan. Thank you. Rob Jackson says, hey, Andrew, which two should I flex in a full PPR? Wicks, Watson, Ladd, Pearsall. As of right now, in a full PPR, I'm probably going Pearsall. Let me see where I have a Ladd McConkey in comparison to Wicks. Yeah, I have Ladd McConkey 2 spots ahead. Let me actually check this real quick. If I go here, let me see. Look, the issue with Ladd McConkey is I'm expecting him to play. I know he's dealing with a little bit of a hip injury, which is also, kind of a little bit sketchy in that circumstance. Yeah, if it was me, I'd probably go with Ladd McConkey alongside of Pearsall. If you don't want to risk any sort of Ladd McConkey hip situation, just play Wicks alongside of Pearsall. Thank you. Jesse G says JSN or D-Hop. I'd rather play JSN. Any UD picks? Let me check my Underdog account. I think I put in a couple picks on Saturday afternoon, but I don't know what exactly they were. I mean, again, I throw in picks randomly sometimes. So today, besides the plays that I suggested on Friday's Friday's Hidden Gems Underdog entry section, in that overall situation, besides those, the other plays that I made on Saturday during the live stream were like, what did I put on Saturday during the live stream? I went like higher on Jaden Reed receiving yards, higher than 57.5. Tank Dell higher than 53.5 receiving yards. David Montgomery higher than 0.5 rushing or receiving touchdowns. I went higher than. Okay, so I put together a specific slip entry that was all higher on kicker extra points made. I took Jake Bates, Greg Zuerlein, Justin Tucker, and Will Lutz all scoring more than 2.5 extra points this week. You might want to throw that one in. We'll see. Thank you. All right. But yeah, as for your prior question, JSN, Jesse, thank you. Gareth Taylor says, hi, from Stockholm, Sweden. How about that, Gareth? Standard start 2, Pickens, Cooper, or Dell. Or any of Dell, Waddle, or Hopkins. Got it. So of those available, if it was my choice, Gareth, I would go with Pickens and Waddle. Those would be the two that I prefer to play. Then would be Cooper and then Dell and then Hopkins in that order. Thank you. T King sends in a follow-up, says, should I trade any in a full PPR? Tua, that's Aaron Rodgers, JJ, Garrett Wilson, Flowers, Hall, Aaron Jones, Kenneth Walker, Braylon Allen, Vidal, Ty Chandler, Charbonnet, Christian McCaffrey, Brooks, Conklin. I think once you get Christian McCaffrey back, at that point, you can potentially move in. You could probably... So this is my suggestion, T King. Once you get back Christian McCaffrey, then at that point, you're trading Aaron Jones for either a tight end or a quarterback, or maybe both. That's what you would do, because you'd start Hall, McCaffrey, Christian, and Kenneth Walker every game rest of the year, and you wouldn't be able to play Aaron Jones unless you play in a multi-flex league. So you would take Aaron Jones and you would trade him to try to get a better quarterback or tight end, or maybe even a better wide receiver too. That's the way you go about it, but you have to wait until McCaffrey returns in week 10 to be able to accomplish that. Hopefully that is prior to your overall trade deadline. Alex Olivas says, hey, Andrew, in a half PPR last flex spot, McBride or Pearsall? As of the two of them, I'd rather just play Pearsall. Again, the only issue that I have with McBride is lack of touchdown potential upside in comparison to Pearsall, which again, I do anticipate that offense to have more red zone opportunities in comparison. Unfortunately, the overall offense of the Arizona Cardinals have scored 17 or fewer points in the last 5 games. It is not an easy matchup. They are close within the rankings. I'm going to lean towards Pearsall there ever so slightly because of, the greater opportunity of targets and potential for touchdown upside in that circumstance. Thank you. Scott Green says full PPR. I need 2. Worthy, Bateman, Wan'Dale Robinson, or Pittman. Already have Cup playing. Okay. So in a full PPR, I'd play Wan'Dale Robinson and Rashad Bateman. Thank you. Hank Hennig sends in a question, says, in a full PPR, I need 1 flex. Sorry, lot to choose from. Christian Kirk, Josh Downs, Tyler Algier, Raheem Mostert, Ricky Pearsall, Tracy, and Warren. As of right now, the number 1 would be Pearsall, number 2 would be Tracy, number 3 would probably be Kirk. But yeah, Pearsall's my number 1. All right, Brett sends in a question, says, in a half PPR, pick 2, Najee, Brian Robinson Jr., Devontae Smith. I'll play both running backs. Give me Najee and Brian Robinson Jr. this week, Brett. Zachary, Shans says in a PPR start two, Dobbs, McMillan, Yoshivas, Bigsby. In a PPR, I'm probably going to... Let me see where I have McMillan in comparison to Bigsby in a full PPR. McMillan sits there. He's ahead of Bigsby. So yeah, McMillan and Dobbs would be my suggestion, Zachary. Thank you. Prel sends in a question, says one tight end, one flex, Kraft, Pitts, Marvin Harrison. Legitimately, no question. I mean, let me check really quickly just to confirm. And let's say in a full PPR, yeah, I have Kyle Pitts and I have Tucker Kraft both ahead of Marvin Harrison this week. So I play both tight ends there, Prel. Thank you. Brandon sends in a question, says, what's up, Andrew? In a full PPR, I need two flexes. We have Najee Harris, Wan'Dale Robinson, Bucky Irving, Chubb, Chase Brown, Tillman. Okay, so we need two flexes out of those available options. If it's my team, I am playing Wan'Dale Robinson alongside of Najee Harris. Actually, let me look at where I have Chase Brown in comparison to Wan'Dale Robinson before I actually make that a designated confirmation. Chase Brown sits there. Where's Wan'Dale Robinson? Nope, Chase Brown's ahead of him. Never mind. Play both running backs, Chase Brown and Najee Harris. Scratch that off. We could. As for the next question, Laporta or Cade Otton at tight end, I'd just rather play Cade Otton. I think Laporta could have himself a solid week here in the absence of Jameson Williams, but again, very much so touchdown dependent in comparison to Otton, who in a full PPR should see himself a vast majority of overall targets, very similar to what he saw last week, hopefully. Jawan says Andre Yoshivas or Chuba Hubbard. Again, yeah, I will probably play Yoshivas there. Thank you. Moving on to Brian, Colorado, who says in a super flex, Geno or Russell Wilson. Also, is DK playing? I don't expect DK to play. Therefore, I will take Russell Wilson on Monday night against the Giants. Thank you. Sam Castillo sends in a question, says full PPR pick two. Christian Kirk, Roma Dunze, Kyle Pitts, Algier, Moss, Gabe Davis, Judy, Yoshivas. I'm decimated by injuries and I need upside. Appreciate the work. Yeah, as of those available, I'm playing Kyle Pitts and Jerry Judy. Thank you. Kadiak sends in a question. Says, I hope multi-questions are allowed. Of course they are. Why wouldn't they be? You can ask like 10 questions in one super chat and as long as it fits, then it's good. 10-team full PPR. Need one flex. Amari Cooper, Romeo Dobbs, Alvin Kamara, Darnell Mooney, or Ricky Pearsall. Let me see where I have Kamara in comparison to Amari Cooper. That's really just the designation here. Kamara sits there, and he is ahead of Amari Cooper. So Kamara would be that number one flex. As for your next question, also start Cousins or wait for the possibility of Daniels. Do I drop downs for Dalvin? No. What you would do, actually, Kadiak, would be you would drop downs for a pivoting option at quarterback. So I would say if you have Jaden Daniels, right, and you have the pivoting ability to either pick up, I mean, looking at the quarterback rankings here on screen, like if you have the ability to pick up Tua, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Geno Smith, I think it's a plausible approach to where if you feel like you want to risk it for the biscuit with Jaden Daniels, considering all the positive momentum surrounding him, I'd be willing to drop Josh Downs right now, pick up another quarterback, push it to the limit, see if Jaden Daniels plays. If he doesn't, you pivot off. Thank you. All right, Juiced Prop says, Superflex, 10-man, full PPR, start two wide receivers, two flex, London, Dell, Pollard, Brian Robinson, Devontae Smith, Wan'Dale Robinson, Tyrone Tracy, Pearsall, and Hopkins. Okay, so of the available, if we're starting two wide receivers and two flex, London has to play. Alongside of London, in terms of wide receivers, the next highest wide receiver that I have in terms of my rankings would in fact be Dell. So those would be the 1 and 2 option. As for your flex in a full PPR, at that point, I am going to lean towards playing Brian Robinson Jr. Let me see where I have Pollard in comparison to Devontae Smith. That's really the only thing. Devontae Smith, I have Pollard ahead of him. So the way that I go about it is London, Dell, Brian Robinson, and Pollard. Those are the 4 that I suggest this week. Thank you. Moving on to Jawan, we took care of that as well. Thank you, Jawan. We're playing Andre Yoshivas. Did you send that in 4 times, Jawan? What happened, brother? Okay, my YouTube's about to crash any second now, so I'm going to see if I can refresh this page in order to get it on point. Again, for those of you who are joining us this morning, welcome. Hope you guys are all doing well on this wonderful Sunday for week 8 of the 2024 fantasy football season. Again, if you guys look at the right side of the screen, rankings within interpositional conversations for a half PPR are available there. Top 36 running backs, wide receivers, top 16 quarterbacks, tight ends, top 12 kickers, and defenses. Okay, appreciate it. Thank you. Again, if you guys are members of the Patreon, the rankings have already been posted. If you guys have signed up using code Andrew via Underdog this season, August 1st to yesterday, those rankings have already been out and sent to your email. Check the spam folder. Thank you. Okay, so continuing on, we had a question that came in from Perry Paul, who says full PPR, McBride or Dell? I'd rather play Dell. Thank you. Damon Smith sends in a question, says, in a full PPR, Pop Douglas or Cedric Tillman? I'd rather play Pop Douglas. Next, between Wicks and Watson, which receiver would you keep rest of season? Don't see a point of having both on roster. As of right now, I would play Wicks. In terms of the overall, let me actually read this. Wait, what is this new report? Myles Garrett showed up at the stadium today. Nobody cares. Yep. Okay. Let me read this. So in terms of, all right. So it says the Packers wide receiver usage in 4 games. I found this on Twitter. This is from Graham Barfield. I don't know who he is, but I took it at his word. He took it off of fantasy point data, whatever. Okay. So he said Packers wide receiver usage in 4 games with Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Dontavion Wicks, and Christian Watson all active. First read target rate, Doubs 26%, Reed 20%, Wicks 17%, Watson 9%. Routes run per dropback, Dobbs 79, Reed 76, Watson 52, Wicks 39. So despite the fact that he plays less, he gets himself far more first reads. He gets himself far more fantasy production and implicated upside. So Wicks would be the guy that you keep, in my opinion. Big Jim Gene sends in a question, says pick 2 in Superflex, Tua, Knicks, Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson, or Bryce Young. If I'm playing 2 of these options, I'm playing Knicks and Tua. Thank you, Big Jim. Supreme Bean says, Connor or Kamara in a full PPR? I'd rather play Connor. Thank you very much, Supreme. Redify says, curious as to why Pearsall over McMillan with Debo in. Debo's, okay, understand purely. With Debo in, that makes Debo more of a threat to the defense to where they are tilting the field in his direction in order to stop him. So it opens up even more upside for Pearsall. Now, the issue that I have with McMillan is the fact that I don't think he's a good enough wide receiver to be able to absorb the value that is lost out of Evans and Godwin and still be even in that conversation. Like he won't be able to accumulate all of it. Like a lot of it is going to go to Cade Otton first and foremost. And then it's going to be a distribution of McMillan, Sterling, and Trey Palmer. And in the running backs, like McMillan isn't going to be, again, if he was a better wide receiver, I'd say sure, but I don't think he's that talented to where he can immediately just fill in and have that much more upside. Arctic Chill says in a full PPR, 2 flex, Bateman, Douglas, D-Hop, Tillman, Adunze. As of right now, it's Douglas and it's Bateman. Thank you. Timo Garcia says PPR, Drake May or Demario Douglas. Sorry, Drake May and Demario Douglas or Jameis Winston and Jerry Jeudy. As of right now, I'll take Jameis Winston, Jerry Jeudy combo. Smokey the Cat says in a PPR, 1 flex, Keenan Allen, Yoshi Voss, Wicks, Bucky, Shepard, Eckler. Out of that group, I'm playing Keenan Allen. Thank you. Seta sends in a question, says PPR, pick 1, Tillman, Shepard, Franklin. Tillman's number 1, Franklin's 2, Shepard's 3. Thank you. God's Gang says, do you think JD plays? I have Murray, but plays at 10. Do I think he plays? Yes. Can I guarantee that? No. Therefore, what do? You either drop Murray and pick up a pivoting option or play him outright. Thank you. So, look, if it was my team, I would probably just play Murray. Because, honestly, I don't want to drop Murray for like a Russell Wilson because I'd rather have Murray rest the season for, Jaden Daniels' upcoming bye week here. So, as of right now, again, I'd probably just play Murray just to avoid risk. But I actually do believe that Jaden Daniels probably plays. But again, I can't guarantee that. There's no, I can't guarantee it. Therefore, I can't rank it on screen. I don't want to guide you in the wrong direction and then you get screwed, right? Spencer sends in a question, says Kamara or Dell in a full PPR. Let me see where I have them ranked. Kamara is ahead of Dell. Thank you. Moving on to a question from PC who says start 1 in a PPR. Rashad White, McMillan, Pearsall, Pittman. Pearsall number 1, Rashad White 2, McMillan 3, Pittman 4. Daniel Del Muro says in a PPR, Russ, Anthony Richardson, or Baker. I prefer to play Russ there. Thank you. Harrison 101087 says in a full PPR, start 1 at the flex. Pearsall, Bucky, Zay Flowers, Calvin Ridley. I'll play Zay Flowers there. You said you're worried about Flowers' ankle potentially limited play. Then at that point you would pivot to playing Pearsall. Thank you. Speak Your Piece says in a conversation of QB1, do I play Tua or Mahomes? I'd rather play Tua. Adams or Diggs in a PPR? I'd rather play Diggs. Thank you. Shot to Smooth sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, pick one. Brian Thomas Jr., Debo, or Amari Cooper. I'd rather play Debo over the group. Thank you. Maurice Silvano says, in a flex, one, Lad, Keenan, Mostert, Wicks, and... Okay, first and foremost, let's get that done. Out of those available in a full PPR, I'm playing Keenan Allen. In a half PPR format, just give me Mostert there. Next question. Bo Nix or Purdy in a 4-point per passing touchdown league. I'd rather play Purdy. Purdy's starting to scoot around a little bit, recently. Obviously, 2 rushing touchdowns last week. I guarantee you he will not throw 3 picks this week. He will not look as bad as he did last week. That Kansas City defense is elite in every sense of the word. AJ Fronton sends in a question. Says, full PPR, Dobbs or Najee? Let me see where I have Dobbs in comparison. Dobbs sits there. He is, in fact, ahead of Najee Harris. So that's the way that I'd go about it. Let me see. Najee. Yep, he's ahead of Najee. Thank you. By the way, he's ahead of him by 1 given spot. They're back-to-back in my rankings, full PPR flex. Jace writes, sends in a question, says Chase Brown or Nick Chubb. I'd rather play Chase Brown. Thank you. Nathan Salazar sends in a question, says full PPR, start Connor or BTJ. I'd rather play Connor. Also, watch your strength of schedule on your running backs. Also, was I wrong to trade Kyron and I got Connor and Rashad White? I mean, again, at the time at which you may have accomplished it, I don't think it was probably a bad idea, but in the long term, now that these receivers are back, it may hurt more often than not. Yeah, it might be a definite painful experience there, Nathan, going forward. Little Boy Blue sends in a question, nothing attached to it. Hopefully you typed in the chat. Do me a favor, Blue, type in the chat, Blue Jay. Damian sends in a question, says Drake May, Keenan Allen, or Cedric Tillman, or Pearsall in a PPR. Honestly, I default to playing the quarterback. Thank you. Jose Rodriguez says start/sit 1. We have Dak or Caleb. I'd rather play Caleb. Walker, Hunt, Wilson, Waddle, Henry, Montgomery, Bigsby, Olave, Higgins, Tracy Laporta, Christian McCaffrey. Will Laporta do well with Jameson out? I'm hoping so. Again, I have to start him in one of my leagues today, so let's see if that leads to anything. But in terms of your starter sit conversation, Jose Rodriguez, Caleb's your starting quarterback. In terms of your starting running backs, Hunt and Walker are your 1-2. Starting wide receivers, as you know, well, actually, no. Look, as of right now, you have Henry. So you play Henry and Walker as your 2 running backs. Wilson and Waddle are your 2 starting wide receivers. Your flex is Kareem Hunt. You play Laporta at tight end, and that is the way you approach it. Thank you. Let's see here. Yoni Ruben sends in a question. Says, happy birthday, Kirchhoff. Thank you. Appreciate it. Says, on a full PPR, for the flex, who do I start? Bigsby, Dowdle, or Adunze? As of those available options, I'm going to lean towards playing Bigsby as of right now. Next question is, again, because of ETN's absence. I'm concerned with Bigsby because of the bad script. Yeah, listen, I don't blame you for that opinion. I could subscribe to that. If you were going to pivot off of him, you'd have to play Dowdle because I don't know if I can trust Adunze outside of 1 60-yard bomb down the sideline, which isn't out of the realm of possibility. They do play Washington, but between Bigsby and Dowdle, it's just a matter of both scripts are cooked. Technically, let me see. What do I have Dowdle in comparison to full PPR? Hold up. Pause. Everybody stay calm. Yeah, I have Bigsby at 25 and Dowdle at 26. I have them back-to-back. So I'd still lean towards Bigsby there ever so slightly. But if you want to pivot off, I have no issue. They're in the same tier and ranked back-to-back. Carlos Laurie says, in a full PPR flex, would you play Kelsey or take Bigsby? I'd much rather play Kelsey. Your thoughts on not starting Mahomes despite owning Raiders? He doesn't own the Raiders, brother. I told you. He lost to them last year on Christmas Day. What are we talking about? He doesn't own the Raiders. Now, is he going to beat them today? Of course, that's a given because his defense is going to carry him. But God, do I hope that Mahomes lights them up. Give me 4 touchdowns, please. But yeah, this owning the Raiders thing is I think it's blown out of proportion. I don't subscribe to that thought. All right, let me go to the live chat. Let's see if Little Boy Blue. Let's see, Blue Jay. Where are you at, Blue Jay? Blue Jay says Pitts or Kraft, and why? Yeah, Kraft, touchdown upside, purely. That is where I'm leaning towards. Touchdown upside, incredible matchup against Jacksonville. Again, if you look at the last 2 groups of tight ends that have taken on Jacksonville in London, Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper, both of them combined for over 10 catches and over 100 receiving yards last week. The week prior, Cole Kmet, 5 catches, 72 touchdowns. This is a Tucker Kraft kind of signature week based on matchup, upside, etc. All right, moving on. Let's see here. We have a question that comes in from... Trying to catch up, guys. I'm very much so trying to catch up. Apologies. Jonathan Chetty says, a boogie in a half PPR, Josh Jacobs or Jordan Mason. I'd rather play Jordan Mason. Thank you. Niner86 says, I meant to Pick one for the flex, Neighbors or Achan. Thank you. Okay. Between the two of them in a half PPR, the way I have it ranked in the flex, I do in fact have Achan ranked higher. So that's who I go with. Thank you. Moving on to Maya Fuji, who says Dobbs or McLaurin in a full PPR. As of right now, in a full PPR, let's see here. We have, so right now I do have currently Dobbs ahead of McLaurin. Now, if in fact McLaurin was to have a guarantee of Jaden Daniels, I would play him over Dobbs. Now, the issue is that Dobbs plays in the morning window. Therefore, I'm just going to play him and avoid any risk. But if you want to wait and potentially play McLaurin with or without Daniels, I don't have an issue with it. I have McLaurin significantly lower ranked with Mariota. Spencer P says Ramondre, Rico Dowdle, or DeAndre Hopkins full PPR flex. I would play Rico Dowdle there. Thank you. Ashley sends in a question. Says pick one in a flex full PPR. Bigsby, Dell, JS, and Mooney. Out of those available, if I'm playing one, it is Tank Dell. Thank you. Adam Amar says Mooney or Brian Robinson. If it was your team, who would you be playing? Let me look at the... I don't know what your format is. I'm going to assume it's full PPR. Adam, I mean, you sent in a lot of questions over the week, and honestly, I don't even remember what you're scoring. Brian Robinson is probably... I probably play Brian Robinson, regardless of format, full, half, standard. I'll run him across the board. If Jaden Daniels plays like I expect him to, he'd be an even better upside play. Again, for those of you who are joining us this morning, welcome. Hope you guys are doing well. In about a couple seconds here, I'm going to mention something about quarterbacks. I have no clue whether or not Jaden Daniels plays. If you have him on roster and you have a pivoting option like a Kyler Tua, Bo Nix, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, if Jaden Daniels is active this week, he's my number 5 quarterback. He would play ahead of Jared Goff. Understand that first and foremost, just so we know that in terms of context going forward. Thank you. Moving on to Jack Venable, who says, in a full PPR flex rank, Worthy, Hunter Henry, Yoshivas Palmer. Out of those available, I legitimately play Hunter Henry. Thank you. Powerful AD 3 sends in a question, says, sup, GOAT. Do I start Kirky or Daniels if he plays? Again, you would only play Daniels if you have a pivoting option going into the afternoon window. Otherwise, you have to play Kirk now. G. Santos says Mooney or Brian Robinson PPR. I'll take Brian Robinson. Carson Hughes says Lockett or Debo as my wide receiver too. I'd rather play Debo. Thank you. Kevin, the credit guy, says in a quarterback gets points per completion league, do I play Goff or Baker? I'd rather play Goff. Thank you. Jay Nice says full PPR. I need to start. Wow, you get points per completion. But yeah, I don't think you probably don't get very many points per completion. It's probably like 0.2 or something like that. I'd still play Goff there. Jay Knight says full PPR. I need to start a flex. Sutton, Pickens, Myers, or Bigsby. I'd play Pickens there. No questions asked. He is the best of the available. And also James Conner or Bigsby. I'd rather play James Conner. Thank you. Double AC1 sends in a question. Says in a half PPR, 2-quarterback league, 10-team keeper, my wide receivers consist of Justin Jefferson, Malik Neighbors, Jaden Reed, Metcalf, Tolbert, Franklin. Running backs are Kyron, Hunt, Harris, Corum. Most quarterbacks are Jackson and Stafford. Tight ends are Andrews and Joku. Trade Hunt and Tolbert for Jacobs. Absolutely, no questions asked. Immediately take that trade. Do it now if you can. Double AC1. Thank you. Donovan Jordan says in a full PPR flex, Tank Bigsby, Tank Dell, or Chuba Hubbard. In a full PPR, I will take Tank Dell. Thank you. Jason sends in a question. Says, half PPR, Bigsby or DJ Moore? I would rather play DJ Moore. Thank you. Paul sends in a question. Says, good morning, Andrew. In a full PPR double flex, I need to fill in the last spot, deciding between Dowdle, Pearsall, K. Dotton. If it was my team in a full PPR format, I am playing Pearsall and I am playing K. Dotton. Those are the two that I roll with. Thank you. Gabriel Beck sends in a question. Nothing attached. Gabriel, do me a favor and type in the live chat what your question was. Appreciate it. Evan Me sends in a question. Says, trade Olave, Keenan Allen, and Braylon Allen for Adams, Muth, and Bucky. I don't see the value in Muth. The only value that I see is Adams. Bucky, maybe. But even then, it's very limited. It's purely based on matchups, which you will only be able to take advantage of maybe post-week 11 after their bye week. As of right now, I will take it because I prefer Devontae Adams above all pieces in this scenario, but I don't love it because Muth really doesn't provide much to you. Joey Green says, hi, Andrew. In the flex, BTJ or Brian Robinson in the half PPR? I'd rather play Brian Robinson there. Ashley sends on a follow-up, says, pick 2 in a full PPR. McLaurin, Olave, Dell, Achan, BTJ. It would be between Dell and Achan as the 2 primaries. Now, Again, that is only because I don't know whether or not Jaden Daniels plays. Otherwise, I would have McLaurin ahead of Dell, but considering, again, I don't know, I'm going to lean towards playing Dell in the morning slate alongside of Achane there. Thank you. Phil sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR flex, Tolbert, Downs, or Eckler. Out of those three options, I'm going to play Eckler. Thank you. Eckler, Tolbert, Downs would be the order in which I approach it. Actually, let me confirm that. It's probably not the case. In my full PPR rankings, the way I set it up last night, Tolbert actually is the play. Never mind, scratch it. Because I don't know if Jaden Daniels for sure plays, so it kind of lowers his potential for upside. Let me get into the live chat, see if Gabriel Beck sent in anything. Let's see, Beck. I see Becky Davis in the chat, says, if my super chat, I forgot to put flex. Got it, Becky, thank you. But I guess we'll wait for Gabriel maybe at one point. Gabriel, you still in the neighborhood? Okay, continuing on until we get that to be sent in. Including... Wow, interesting. Okay, so continuing on, we had a question sent in from took care of that. Vic84, if you can also put in your question in the live chat, be greatly appreciated. So Vic84, and we need Beck, Gabriel Beck. Auntie Slayer sends in a question, says, I need one flex, Pitts, Pearsall, Tracy, Marvin Harrison, Bateman, Yoshivas. Out of that group, I'm playing Pearsall number 1, Pitts number 2. The rest of them will be secondary. Next, I need two flex between Jonnu, Marvin Harrison, Bateman, Tolbert, Yoshivas. Out of that group, I'm playing Marvin Harrison and Bateman. Thank you. 305 Raider sends in a question, says, Higgins is out. I need one in the full PPR. Wan'Dale Robinson, Ertz, or Shepard. I'm taking Wan'Dale Robinson there. 305 Raider. Thank you. Justin sends in a question. Justin Wynn says, in a full PPR, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 1 flex. Out of Achane, Mason, Hunt, Kenneth Walker, Madison, we have CeeDee Lamb, Olave, Lockett, Ladd, Ricky. Okay, so first and foremost, in terms of setting your lineup this week, Achane and Mason are your RB1 and 2, and Hunt is in your flex. No, scratch that. You have Kenneth Walker as well. Holy shit. The way that I'd go about it in a full PPR would be Achane and Kenneth Walker, then Mason. So Hunt gets the bench. As for your wide receivers, I would play CeeDee Lamb alongside of Olave. Thank you. Then for your next question, also trade Hunt for Debo. Yes, if you could do it now do not play Hunt this week. Trade him for Debo right now. That would be great. Duro Modi says, good morning, Andrew. In a full PPR, start McConkey, McMillan, Bateman, or Watson. Out of the group in a full PPR, I believe I have Bateman ranked the highest based on his consistency as of late. I do have Bateman 1 spot ahead of McMillan. I would not mind playing McMillan ahead of him in a full PPR in this capacity, but Bateman is a suggestion. Marvin Lewis, thank you very much, sends in a question. Says, in a standard non-PPR league, I need a flex between Zach Moss, Evan Ingram, Douglas, Eckler, and Braylon Allen. I'm going to play Evan Ingram there. Thank you. Brock2343 says, just heard Jaden Daniels might play, him or Russ. You'll be able to decide once the game approaches. Again, if he is active today, you play him. Otherwise, you pivot to playing Russell Wilson on Monday night because you have the ability to do so with that pivoting option. Isaiah Spivey says, Higgins out. Do I play Keon Coleman or Yoshivas? Between the two of those, I would play Yoshivas. Thank you. Ankit Patel sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, start 2 between Douglas, Tolbert, and Coleman. I have Douglas and Coleman as the 2 highest between those 3, I think. Yeah, I do. Out of those 3. Randy Figueroa says, in a full PPR, I need 2 flex between Chubb, White, Myers, and Pearsall. I would play White and I would play Pearsall. Thank you. Mo Metcalf sends in a question, nothing attached. Mo, do me a favor, type it in the live chat while we are waiting for you to type that in. Let me go see if Vic84 sent in a follow-up. Vic84 says, in a full PPR, if Jaden Daniels plays, where does he and Seibert land in terms of rankings? Is it time to drop a Dunze? Hold on to Dunze for today. That's fine. But just to give you context, okay, so for the rankings that we currently have on screen, okay, if Jaden Daniels is active, Jaden Daniels will be my number 5 overall quarterback. Brian Robinson would move from number 21 at running back to number 18 ahead of James Cook. And then Terry McLaurin would move from being 25 to being my number 18 overall wide receiver ahead of Tank Dell. So they would jump up considerably. Seibert would be my number 4 ranked kicker. Excuse me, wide receiver. Imagine Seibert at wide receiver. Yeah, so Seibert, if we got a guarantee that Jaden Daniels was playing, he would play ahead of Will Lutz as my number 4. Thank you. All right, after Vic, we're looking for Beck, right? Yeah, Gabriel Beck. Gabriel Beck, nowhere to be found. Okay, Gabriel, have a great rest of your day. Continuing on, let's see if Mo Metcalf wants to type that in. Mo Metcalf. Mo, anything? I see Mo K in the chat sending something. Let's see. Mo, is there any Mo's? Mo K says, I got bad luck. I'm the highest scoring team in the league, and I'm in 8th place out of 12 teams. Okay, so again, you still got a lot of time to be able to get back on track here. Do I wait for Jaden Daniels or play Tua Tagovailoa with Tyreek Hill and A-Chan stack? Honestly, if you don't have a pivoting option that is comparable to Tua, then yes, you keep him and you wait for Jaden Daniels to get healthy for next week. Let's see here. Where's Mo Metcalf? Anything? Mo? No. Nothing yet. Therefore, we will continue to move on. Alrighty. So let's scroll back into the live chat and we continue to okay, here we go. Mo Metcalf. Okay, Becky Davis sends in a question. So it says full PPR, choose 2. So this is what you were referring to, Becky, in terms of their flex options. Choose 2 for the flex: Dobbins, Brian Robinson Jr., Waddle, and Brian Thomas Jr. Out of those available options, I would be playing Dobbins and Waddle. Thank you. Florian Funk says in a full PPR, half PPR, A-Chan or Pickens in the flex spot. Thank you very much. I would play A-Chan there. Thank you. Dylan says, I hope all is well. I got 2 questions for you. Both are full PPR, both are flex. Mooney, Brian Robinson, or Adunze. Got it. And then let's see here. If I go to Mooney versus Brian Robinson, Mooney, I believe I have Brian Robinson ahead of Mooney. Next question, Bigsby, Chuba Hubbard, or McMillan. I would rather play Bigsby. Well, let me see here. In a full PPR, I'm pretty sure I have McMillan ahead of Bigsby. Let me confirm this. I do. So it would be, my current suggestion would be Brian Robinson alongside of McMillan. Thank you. Malcolm King sends in a question, says, full PPR, Rico or Otten in the flex? In a full PPR, I'm playing Kate Otten. Thank you. Josie sends in a question, says, in a full PPR, Marvin Harrison or Jonathan Taylor? I'd rather play Jonathan Taylor. Thank you. Mike Taylor says, Shakir, McLaurin, or Keenan Allen in the flex? I would probably just roll with McLaurin. Either way, whether or not we get, Mariota or Jaden Daniels, I'd just play with McLaurin. I think there's a lot of upside in that situation. If you want the safety and floor of like 6 catches for 60, or, probably not, I don't know if it's that high of upside, but like maybe 5 catches, 50, like 10 points, you want automatic 10 points, Shakir provides that. Otherwise, McLaurin is the upside with the variable risk. Itoza says, hey, Andrew, good morning. Check X, please. Aiden London. Cool. Perfect. Let me just go ahead and do that right now. Let's go to Twitter. Did you send me a DM? I'm going to assume you sent me a DM, huh? Did you not send me a DM? I don't see anything. Itoza, did you send it to me or some other person? I see it. I got it. Thank you. All right. Itoza says, hi, Andrew. I'm hoping you're having a good morning. It's been a great morning. I'm running on 2 hours of sleep and a little bit of caffeine, but I'm doing great. Thank you. Who should I start at the flex spot? Very tough matchup this week, and I really want to win. Already down 23 points. I've been leaning towards. Pearsall. I dropped Baker, and the Love owner dropped Love for Baker. Had no idea what was going on at quarterback. Beautiful. Okay. So where's your question here? Aiden, I don't see a team, brother. What's your question? I see it now. It loaded in. Thank you. So looking at your team, Jordan Love, J.K. Dobbins, Kenneth Walker, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Kelsey, Ravens defense, Austin Seibert. We're looking for who to play in the flex. Understood. As of what you have available, it's either Pearsall or you play Zay Flowers. I would lean towards playing Zay Flowers considering he was given the thumbs up today. If you are worried about the potential of him, the negative game script, the injury, all that kind of jazz, obviously the pivot is Pearsall, but I would play Zay Flowers if it was my team. Thank you. Okay, before we continue, Andrew needs to figure out who he's playing in the flex for his own home league because T. Higgins wanted to go ahead and take the week off. Thanks, T. Higgins, for blessing us with that, buddy. Let's put ETN in the IR, and then let's throw him here, and I think that is the best approach. Yep. All right, continuing on, we had a question from To The Max, who says, full PPR, Flowers, Brian Robinson, or Bigsby? Again, Flowers has the most upside. I mean, it's just because of the full PPR format, if the guy's healthy, he's a machine. I have Flowers ahead of him. If you're worried about the injury, he's 3 spots ahead of Brian Robinson. You would just swap to Brian Robinson at that point. if you're worried about it. Science on the right sends in a question, says quarterback 4 point per touchdown. Cousins, Stroud, Knicks. I'd rather just play Stroud today. Thank you. Matt Campbell says Laporta, Komet, Demario Douglas, pick 2.5 PPR, half-point tight end bonus, and half-point per first down. So basically in a full PPR, whatever. Yeah, I'll take Laporta and Komet there. That's fine by me. Thank you. Where01 says PPR, trade Reed, Marvin Harrison, and Moss for London and Najee. Moss is irrelevant, so it's basically 2 for 2. And yes, I would prefer to have London and Najee rest of the way. Thank you. Nelson Weston says, in a full PPR, 1 quarterback, 1 tight end, 2 flex. We have Russell Wilson, Mahomes. I will take Russell Wilson there. Next question, Njoku or Kelsey? I will take Kelsey there. And then in the flex, Chase Brown, Hopkins, Mooney, or Kelsey, or Njoku. Okay, got it. So Russell Wilson, Travis Kelsey, David Njoku, Darnell Mooney. Those are the 4 that I play. Thank you, Nelson. Not Lucid. It says full PPR, point per first down. Do I play Bigsby, Rashad, or Dell, or Lockett? I'd play Dell. Thank you. Will Sherman says full PPR. Devontae Smith or Najee Harris. I have Jalen Hurts at quarterback. I don't love the matchup for Devontae Smith. I don't actually think I have him ranked higher than Najee. Let me see this. I have Najee Harris ahead of him. If I love the matchup a little bit more, I'd be okay with it. Look, Devontae Smith last week is a fluke. I expect him to be significantly better within the upcoming matchup, but do I expect him to have that touchdown upside to potentially get him over the hump? No. That's the only extra factor that kind of scares me. So I'd just lean towards playing Najee there. Okay, so let's go back into the live chat. Let's see if Mo Metcalf sent in a question. Mo? No? Mo? Nothing? Okay, Mo is out of the country, I guess. Or out of the live chat, or out of the universe. I don't know where he went. He left his computer for sure, though. Okay, continuing on. We will come back to see if Mo Metcalf sends in anything else. Hector Perez sends in a question. Says, in a half PPR, I lost Godwin. Do I play McMillan or Ridley? I'd rather play McMillan. Thank you. Josie sends in a follow-up. Says, full PPR, Wan'Dale Robinson or Cedric Tillman? Wan'Dale Robinson's my suggestion. Thank you. Benjamin Burner says, Irving, McMillan, or Madison in the flex. I would, in a standard league, I'd just rather play McMillan there. Thank you. Sean Trevino says, in a full PPR, pick 1, Adunze, Bucky, Tracy, Douglas, Wan'Dale Robinson. Of those available, I'm legitimately playing either Douglas or Wan'Dale Robinson. Let me see how I have them ranked. Douglas is preferred. Thank you. Moving on to Nooney, AG, who says, Andrew, Olave or Bigsby full PPR? I will take Olave there. Thank you. Chris Moraga sends in a question. Says, happy birthday. Thank you. Half PPR, running back and flex. Zach Moss or Jalen Warren. I will take Jalen Warren, mainly because Zach Moss is terrible at football as of late. They don't give him touches. They don't believe in him. And he will not be implicated for very many fantasy points unless he scores a touchdown, which again, they prefer Chase Brown as the goal line back. So unless Zach Moss makes some incredible play, he will not be able to outscore Jalen Warren, who will be in a positive game script, who literally got more touches last week than Zach Moss got the last 2 weeks combined. Moving on, Keenan Allen or Sam Laporta, already starting Njoku at tight end, or Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk. Out of those available in a half PPR, I'm okay with Keenan Allen or Laporta. Right now, I'd probably just lean towards Keenan Allen. Thank you. Cooper Olin says full PPR, Garrett Wilson or Javonte Williams. Legitimately, I'm playing Javonte Williams there. Thank you. James Caruso says in a half PPR, George Pickens or David Montgomery. I'd go with David Montgomery there, to be honest. Thank you. Sebastian Alex says I need 1 flex and 1 wide receiver. JSN, Chuba, Ricky Pearsall, Ridley. If I need 1 flex and 1 running back, I'm playing JSN and I'm playing Pearsall. I do not want to play Chuba Hubbard against Denver, and I do not want to play Ridley ever. Antonio Valencia says in a full PPR, Rachaad White or Chase Brown. As of the two in a full PPR standing, I have Rachaad White 1 spot ahead of Chase Brown in my ranking. So Rachaad White will be the suggestion. Fibonacci sends in a question, says in a full PPR, flex Neighbors versus Pittsburgh or Hunt versus Las Vegas. Let me check where I have Malik Neighbors. He's going to be really high because of the full PPR designation. But that being said, I have Malik Neighbors as my number 13 and Kareem Hunt as my number 17 overall player, full PPR. They are in 2 different tiers. I would prefer to play Neighbors, but again, they are close enough to where I do anticipate still Kareem Hunt should score like 18 points today in a full PPR. Should. Thank you. So again, that requires a touchdown. Like, let's say 80 yards, a touchdown, you get to 14 there. Then you get maybe the couple sprinkle, make 2 receptions for 20 yards. We're talking about an extra 4 there. We get to 18 very easily without even a second touchdown. That's kind of a pretty solid week. But obviously, if Neighbors shows up and Neighbors does what Neighbors usually does, we're talking like 25 points in a full PPR, which again is really difficult to pass up on. Malcolm King says Rico or Otten. In a full PPR, I'd rather play Otten. In a half PPR standard, give me Rico. 808 all day says in a full PPR, pick 2, Olave, McMillan, McConkey, Hopkins, Debo, with him questionable and 0 possible. Possible 0. I don't expect to see a possible 0 out of Debo. I'd play Olave and Debo. If you think that Debo is capable of a 0-point week, do not play him. Again, I fully expect him to be at a pretty good capacity. 74+% of the snaps is my anticipation. Which again is enough to get him fantasy relevant. Olave and Debo are my suggestions. Otherwise, you pivot to playing McMillan. Dan Hart says in a pick 1 flex, half PPR, Marvin Harrison, McMillan, Mostert, and Worthy. Out of those available, let me see where I have Mostert in a half PPR in comparison to the bunch. So Mostert is 1 spot ahead of Marvin Harrison. So Mostert's my suggestion there. Thank you. Sal Espinoza says in a down bad situation, we have Tracy, McMillan, and Tillman in a half PPR. If it's my team, I'm playing Tyrone Tracy. Thank you. Z Electo K says, good morning, Andrew. In the flex position in a full PPR, Cade Otton, Jalen Warren, Bucky Irving, or Chuba Hubbard. Thanks, man. In a full PPR, give me Chuba Hubbard. In a full PPR, give me Cade Otton. Apologies. Chuba Hubbard will be second in that order. F1 Mafia says, hi, King. In a PPR question, Wanda Robinson or Demario Douglas? I think they're both great plays. I prefer to play Demario Douglas against the Jets. Next question, Waddle, Dell, Smith, pick 1. I'm playing Waddle. Next question, Irving or Tracy? I'll take Irving. No, sorry. Give me Tracy. Apologies. Holy moly, my brain is short-circuiting. So, from the top to the bottom, F1. Douglas, Waddle, Tracy, Pitts. Thank you. Mike Doe sends in a question. Says, in a 12-team full PPR flex, Laporta, Worthy, Sutton, Myers, Pearsall. Give me Pearsall number 1. Give me Sutton number 2. Probably would be like, yeah, let's just leave it at that. Pearsall 1, Sutton 2. Thank you. Jose sends in a question. Says, Andrew, hope everything is well. Choose 4 starting 1 running back and flex. Chuba, Tank Bigsby, McLaurin, Bucky. Cool. Tank Bigsby and McLaurin are my 2 suggestions. Thank you. Do I wait for Daniels or pick up Purdy? Purdy plays on Sunday Night Football. So you would pick up Purdy if Daniels does not play. You should pick up Purdy now to have the pivoting option available. Thank you. Okay, let's see here. We move on to a question that comes in from Lockie McQueen, who says, Yoshibas or Pearsall? Pearsall. Thank you. Jamar Joseph says, PPR, Mason or Dell in the flex? Give me Mason. Dell or Flowers in a PPR? I'm good with Flowers there. If you don't want to play him, Dell is very close within the rankings. Kiwi sends in a question, says, half PPR, 2 flex spots, Brian Robinson, Devontae Smith, Kamara, JSN, Evan Ingram. Brian Robinson, Devontae Smith, Kamara, JSN, Evan Ingram. Of those available in a half PPR, Brian Robinson's number 1, Kamara is number 2. As for your next question, also, if Jaden Daniels out, play Winston or Mariota? I would rather play Mariota this week. Thank you. Hakeem sends in a question, says Jaden or Dak? Jaden. If he's active, he's the starter by far and away. Ray sends in a question, says J.K. Dobbins or Jonathan Taylor? I'd rather play J.K. Dobbins against the Saints run-stop defense. Big Cat says trade Deontay and Hubbard or Stevenson for JT. Yes, I would rather trade away Deontay and Stevenson if I had the choice. Thank you. I got potential sends in a question. It says start 3 out of McLaurin, Zay, Debo, and Njoku. If it's a full PPR scoring format, let me see where I have Njoku in comparison to the bunch. So if it's a full PPR scoring format, the way that I would approach this would be to play, as of right now, considering we do not have concrete evidence as to whether or not McLaurin would play, I would suggest playing Zay, Debo, and Njoku. If you want to take the risk of potentially playing Zay Flowers with the ankle, that's fine. Again, there's always an inherent risk with McLaurin as well as the opposite. Between the two of them, I lean towards Zay, but if you want to roll with McLaurin and take that risk, I have no issue with it. So again, the number 1 and 2 for sure are Debo and Njoku. Thank you. Brian Weiss sends in a question, says, in a full PPR, Madison, Downs, Kincaid, Tillman, Justice Hill. Out of those available, I probably go with Madison and hope that he gets a bunch of receiving ups. Yeah, I go with Madison there. Hakeem Capleton says, need a starting quarterback. Daniels, Dak, Rodgers. Who do I start? Okay, so this is the way that you would approach it. Considering your situation, okay, I would wait until Jaden Daniels gets a designation. If he does not play, you pivot to playing Dak Prescott. Thank you. Moving on to a question that comes in from Major Arms, who says, Montgomery, Mixon, Adams, Lamb, beat RJ, Ingram, Tucker, Geno, or Tua. Okay, so we got a lot of options here. Under the assumption you're playing in a start 7, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, and 1 tight end, you're starting running backs. Obviously, Montgomery, Mixon. Starting wide receivers, Lamb, Adams. Then you have Ingram, then you have B. Okay, yeah. So you're fine. As to which tight end I play Ingram in a full PPR. I play Tucker in a half PPR. Geno or Tua, I'd rather play Tua. Thank you. False Prophet says flex full PPR. Tank Dell, DeAndre Hopkins, Chubb, Bucky Irving or Waddle. Out of those available, Waddle's number 1, Tank Dell's number 2. Thank you. iShine101 sends in a question. Says, sup Drew, in a 10-team full PPR, I trade Mark Andrews and Tyler Lockett for JSN rest of the season. I don't really care for that. What do you think? I mean, you have Njoku, but honestly, I think you should be able to get more out of Andrews than just JSN. JSN, I don't even think can weekly start unless DK Metcalf's out or unless they're in a really good matchup. I just don't trust it in terms of the target opportunity we previously saw this season. In some of those games, he's well off. In others, he just disappears. So I don't love the trade. I'd probably just keep and just have the tight end depth on roster. Regular Veteran says, what's your top 5 independent defensive players? I do not do IDPs. I haven't played in an IDP league since 2013, so I cannot tell you. The last time I played in an IDP league, Nnamdi Asomugha played for the Eagles. Okay, just put that into perspective. That's how I know that's when I played. So someone pulled up when the last time Nnamdi Asomugha, the former Raiders cornerback who got traded to the Eagles, tell me when he played in the league or when he went to the Raiders. Went to the Eagles. Let me see this. Nnamdi Asomugha stats. He played for the Eagles in the year 2011. Never mind. The last year that I played, IDP was 2011. Okay, so I have no idea who to suggest, Regular Veteran. Thank you for the support. Jaden Oliver says, Alexander Madison, Chase Brown, or Bucky Irving in the flex, full PPR. Alexander Madison, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving. I'll take Chase Brown there. Thank you, Jaden. Checo Rivera says, full PPR. Devontae Adams, DJ Moore, David Montgomery, pick 2. I honestly played both of the wide receivers there. Give me DJ Moore and give me Devontae Adams. Let me actually check if I have them both ranked higher. Yeah, I do have them both ranked higher. Thank you. Raghav says, in a full PPR, start Debo or go safe with Connor. I would just go safe with Connor. Thank you. Moving on to Danny D, who says, in a full PPR, Tua or Murray, kicker Butker or Seibert. Again, Seibert is 100% contingent on Jaden Daniels playing. Considering we don't see the Chiefs play until the afternoon window, same time as the Washington Commanders starting their game, we will know whether or not, we will know for sure whether or not Jaden Daniels is active. If he is, he plays over Butker. Follow up, I'm playing Tua over Murray this week. If it's a 6-point per passing touchdown league, I'm even more confident. I see a spider walking up my wall. I kind of want to just full send him, but I feel like if I try to, I might knock over the camera and ruin the whole stream. I have to go for it, guys. Everybody, hold up. Give me a second. I'll be right back. All right, I got it. Whew. I literally straight crushed it. Index finger, just like you can see the index finger on screen, absolutely pummeled it. Destroyed, murdered, it is done. How dare they walk in front of me like that? That's disrespectful. Continuing on. Lance Rogers says, in a full PPR superflex, Rico, Chase Brown, Mooney, or Keon Coleman. I would take Mooney number 1, Chase Brown 2. That'd be the way I go about it, but Mooney's the number 1 for sure. Ray sends in a question, says, start Trey, McBride, or Otton in a standard scoring league. Standard 0 points per reception. I would go with Cade Otton there. Trade Otton. Jeez Louise. Cade Otton. Oskino says, D-Hop, a safer start. I have Shakir, Marv Harrison, and Pittman. Nah, I honestly think that he's not. I don't expect him to play much, guys. Again, if he scores like, Amari Cooper did last week, no surprise. Maybe he gets like 3 opportunities to do so, but ultimately, I don't expect him to play enough to where he is going to be able to out-target those available options you have with Shakir, Marvin Harrison, Pittman. Alex, number 8, says, in a 3-4 situation, PPR going against the number 2 team, Cousins or Russell Wilson, I'd rather play Cousins. Start 2, Reek, Hill, Lockett, Pearsall, Olave. Also, okay, let's get to that real quick. Tyreek Hill is an auto start. Pearsall would be the number 2, so those would be the 1-2 combo. And then also Pollard or Dowdle, I'd rather play Pollard today. Thank you. Ronson Castillo says, in a full PPR, Stevenson, Otten, or Tillman. Give me Otten there. Thank you. Juan Sardina says, in a full PPR, Caleb or Kyle. You mean Kyler, right? Caleb or Kyler. I'd rather play Caleb Williams. Moving on. 1 wide receiver, 1 flex. Waddle, Devontae. When you say Devontae, is that Devontae Adams? I'm going to assume that's, the way that you spelt it, it'd be Adams. Okay. Brian Robinson. Okay, so out of those available, in a full PPR, the wide receiver 1 in the flex would in fact be Jalen Waddle and Devontae Adams, Juan. Then moving on to your third question, also different league, McBride or Kraft. I'd rather play Kraft. And 2 flex, Connor, David Montgomery, Reed, Jason Chuba. I would play Connor alongside a Reed there. Thank you. Brotherman says, in a flex, Judy, Coleman, Ramondre, or Warren. I would rather, out of all those guys, play Judy in a full PPR. Thank you. Hoodie Arthur sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, pick 1 start. Calvin Ridley, Pearsall, Tillman, McMillan. I'm playing Pearsall there. And should any of these other guys start over Chase Brown in the flex? No. Thank you. Rico Baptiste sends in a question. Says, in a bench 1 situation, Adams, Douglas, Harrison Jr., DeAndre Hopkins, Alexander Madison, 3 wide receivers, 1 flex, full PPR. I legitimately, wow, let me see where I have DeAndre Hopkins in comparison to Alexander Madison. I don't love Madison this week. I love his receiving upside, but I don't love the potential. Yeah, I currently in a full PPR would sit DeAndre Hopkins out of that entire group. Thank you. Ricky Retro says, in a 12-team super flex, full point PPR, who would you flex this week? Pittman or Kyle Pitts? I'd rather play Kyle Pitts, to be honest. Thank you. Matthew Wallace says, trade Olave/Bowers for Adams and Laporta. No, give me Bowers and Olave rest of the season. Again, until Laporta proves that he can actually be a weekly start. Again, when we're talking about the number 1 tight end in fantasy with Brock Bowers, it just, in a PP or in a half PPR, he's probably the number 2 if I had to guess, but still, it is too valuable to give up in that circumstance. So I would, lean towards no. Why is my Yahoo Fantasy say I have 1 spot open on roster? It says, oh, because I moved someone to the IR. Ha ha ha. Maybe I go pick up somebody. Hold up. Wait a minute. Everybody stay calm. Let me see here. It's a super flex league. I might mess around. Okay. You know what? We'll figure this out later. It doesn't matter. Okay, continuing on. We took care of that. Matthew Wallace took care of you as well. Jaden Oliver says, are we starting Smitty this week after last week? In some scenarios, sure. I don't have an issue with it. Again, Smitty last week is the worst week of his career. I would guarantee he does better this week, right? I think that's a pretty safe, kind of assumption in that circumstance. Stallions Production says, pick 2, Brian Robinson Jr., Romeo Doubs, or Marvin Harrison. Give me Brian Thomas Jr. and give me Romeo Doubs there. Benching Marvin Harrison. Gabriel Martin says, with Jaden Daniels playing, well, is he playing? Did we see a report that indicates that he's 100%? If he's not 100%, then we're just speculating. But let's say, for example, he does. In the context of your question, would I start McLaurin over Hunt? No. Thank you. Alex Espinoza sends in a question. Nothing attached to it. Alex, do me a favor and type in the live chat what your question was so I can get to it. So we're still looking for Mo Metcalf, I think. And we're looking for, of course, Alex Espinoza. Emmanuel sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, start 1 between Debo and Diggs. I'd rather play Diggs. Romaz says, pick 2, please. Bigsby, McLaurin, Cooper. I would play McLaurin and Cooper. Thank you. Marcus Nellum says, in a full PPR, David Montgomery, Najee Harris, I have Pickens, or Mooney. In a full PPR, let me see where I have Montgomery in comparison to Mooney. I do have Montgomery ranked the highest of the bunch just to play it safe. Thank you. Josh Homan says, in a full PPR, Najee, Mooney, 1v1 sniper. Yeah, Spider Stream. Yeah, good one. Okay, so as for your question, in regards to Najee Harris and Mooney, I do have, let's see here. What's your format? Yeah, I'd play Najee there, to be honest. All right, let's go to the live chat, see what Alex Espinoza has to say. Alex Espinoza, anything in the chat? Alex Espinoza sent up a follow-up, said, Wilson Jr., no, Wilson, JT, or Brian Thomas for my wide receiver 2 in flex. Got it. So your wide receiver 2 would be Wilson, and your flex would be Jonathan Taylor. Thank you. If it was a full PPR, let me see if I'd play BTJ over JT. Where's BTJ? Where's BTJ? No, I'd still play Jonathan Taylor. So yeah, it would be Wilson and Jonathan Taylor. Thank you. Okay, let's continue on. We have a question that comes in from after Josh. After that one, we move to a question that comes in from Michael Wynn, who says in a half PPR, pick one: Leggett, Ridley, Keon Coleman, Myers, Wan'Dale Robinson. Out of those available, let me see where I have Myers in comparison to Wan'Dale and Keon Coleman. So as it currently stands, Wan'Dale Robinson's the highest ranked of the bunch. Wan'Dale, Myers, Keon, Ridley, Leggett is the order in which I have it, Michael. Thank you. Torrin Davis says, in a full PPR, start Jonathan Taylor or DJ Moore. Let me check where I have DJ Moore comparatively. I have DJ Moore ahead of Jonathan Taylor in a full PPR. Thank you. Moving on to a question that comes in from iShine101, who says, flex, pick one in a full PPR. Mostert, Lockett, Pearsall, or Najee Harris. I have Najee Harris ranked ahead of the bunch. Thank you. Moving on to a question from Ziggy Lee, who says, in a full PPR flex, Terry McLaurin, Flowers, Shakir, Mooney, Chuba, or Pearsall. Out of the group, it's Terry McLaurin or Flowers. Flowers would be the number one suggestion. Otherwise, you would wait to play Terry McLaurin against the Commanders, hoping that Jaden Daniels plays. If Jaden Daniels does not play, then you would pivot to playing, let me check the schedule. You would pivot to playing Pearsall at night. Thank you. All right, we move on to a question that comes in from Eric Salter, who says, in a half PPR flex league, Marvin Harrison or Tank Bigsby? I'd rather play Tank Bigsby. I'm already starting Evan Ingram and BTJ for the Jaguars. Then we're all in on the Jaguars today, I suppose. But again, if you're worried about overstacking Jaguars, then I guess Marvin Harrison's your play. Otherwise, I do prefer Bigsby. AJN says, start two in a full PPR. Debo, Brian Robinson, Terry McLaurin. Great. So this is the way that we go about it. If you're in a position this week, okay, considering the San Francisco 49ers are the Sunday night game against Dallas, if we get to the afternoon slate and we get a confirmation that Jaden Daniels is playing, just play both your Commanders, okay? And we'll approach it as that. If, in fact, Jaden Daniels does not start, you would play Brian Robinson and you'd play Debo. Thank you. Joe P says, PPR, would you trade Chuba Hubbard for Tua if starting Bo Nix? No, just play Bo Nix this week. Bo Nix has so much rushing upside, and the Carolina Panthers matchup is very favorable. So let's lean towards that. Daniel Barnes says, rest again, because I don't want to give away free value just for Tua. Daniel Barnes says, Chris Boswell or Cameron Dicker. Again, the rankings are on screen in terms of kicker rankings. It'll refilter back in, but as of right now, I have Cameron Dicker as my number 5 and Chris Boswell as my number 11 kicker. So that's the way that I go about it. Cameron Dicker would be the preferred of the two. Again, when I look at Cameron Dicker's overall potential and the ability to stall an offensive drive as consistently as the Chargers accomplish, when I look at the last 2 weeks, again, I mean, we're talking about Cameron Dicker having made literally 8 field goals in the last 2 games. That is ridiculous volume in that circumstance. I'd assume that he'll probably be in the same realm, especially considering they will have a lot of drives in which they're able to move the ball and maybe not complete the drive with a touchdown against the Saints. All right, we move on to a question that comes in from Marcus Nellum as a follow-up. Says, last question was a pick 2. Sorry, no problem. Marcus, getting back to that question, if we scroll back up here, you say David Montgomery, Najee Harris, or Mooney in a full PPR. I would play both of the running backs. Give me both Harris and David Montgomery. I just want to play it safe with touches, yardage, and potential touchdown upside with those two. Moving on to Mark Straw, who says, in a non-PPR league, I have Devontae Adams, Drake London, Amari Cooper, Michael Pittman Jr. as wide receivers. Okay. I have Hall, Hunt, Chubb, Dowdle, and Mason as running backs. I'm being offered Christian McCaffrey for London. Is that a good or bad deal? I don't love where it leaves your wide receiver depth. That's what my issue is. Like, I think having, oh man, okay. If I could get a guarantee that Christian McCaffrey was going to go back to scoring 20 points a week starting in week 10, I'd say you take the deal. Okay? But I can't guarantee that. That is the issue that kind of lies within the decision here. If you're willing to take the risk, I think the reward can be up there, but there is so much variable kind of risk intertwined within it that like I could live off of Adams Amari, but giving away London, who has been a top 6 wide receiver thus far this season, for McCaffrey, who may not return when we expect or may not be at a full capacity, like, man, that is a tough move. But again, if I could get a guarantee, if the universe could give me a sign that McCaffrey is going to be at a full capacity, of course I would take him over London. But there's just so much risk that I don't know if it's something that I'm immediately jumping at the moment. Man, that's tough. I'd have to think about that. Jose Rodriguez sends in a question. Says, my last question was Hunter Henry, not Derrick Henry. Got it. Understood, Jose. Let me go ahead and scroll back up and find the prior context to your question. Let's see here. If I go and I figure out where your question is. Jose, where is your prior question? Is it even in the chat? Okay, you know what I'm going to have to do to find your prior question? I'm going to have to go looking. This may take a little while. Everybody stay calm. For those of you who are joining us, welcome. Hope you guys are doing well. Where is Jose? Jose, I don't have context to your prior question. You'd have to type it out again. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Carlos Gomez says, Kelsey or Ingram, and why? Kelsey. Overall target opportunity. Evan Ingram is solid, but is very much so implicated for, again, Christian Kirk either disappearing or just outright being ignored in the game in comparison. Kelsey doesn't have any more competition within the slot receiving role because Rashi's absence. Billy Jack says, pick 2 in a PPR. BTJ, Waddle, Montgomery, and Harris. In a PPR, I'm going to take Waddle, and I'm going to probably lean towards playing. Let me see where I have BTJ in comparison. Full PPR, Brian Thomas Jr. is right. Yeah, I'm going to play Waddle and Montgomery as of right now. Big Cat says, PPR, would you rather have JT or Nico Collins rest of season? I'd rather have Nico Collins. Assuming he's fully healthy, of course. Medina, 2197, says, full PPR, Jacobs or Biggs? Who's Biggs? You mean Diggs, right? If it's Stephon Diggs, I will play Stephon Diggs there. Next question, Waddle or Diggs? I would rather play Diggs over Waddle. So Waddle, if it's Waddle and well, yeah, let's just put it that way. Diggs plays in both leagues, Medina. Medina, I see the LA Dodgers logo at a baby. You know, hey, listen, Freddie Freeman just is cooking for us as of late. Ahmed E sends in a question, says, full PPR, why Wan'Dale Robinson over Bateman and McMillan in a full PPR? Target opportunity. Just look at Wan'Dale Robinson's targets. He is top 3 in the league in total in terms of total targets. The reception volume he gets is far too valuable to pass up in terms of baseline of production. The other 2 would need touchdown implication to be able to kind of outscore him in that circumstance. Continuing on, let me go back into the live chat and see if Jose had sent in a kind of context for the prior question in regards to Hunter Henry. Jose Rodriguez, start Laporta or Hunter Henry this week. Did I answer Derrick Henry? Oh, okay, interesting. Between the 2 of them, as of right now, the rankings on screen will pop up. In a half PPR, full PPR, regardless of the overall context, as it currently stands, Hunter Henry is the play. Thank you. Let's see here. We move on to a question that continues with... where is it? Okay, we took care of that. Cody Shannon says, Pitts, Dowdle, or Shakir in the flex full PPR? I'd play Shakir there. And then Pitts 2, and then Dowdle 3. Twisted Folk says, I missed the answer to my question in Super Chat. Okay, Twisted, let me see if I can find your prior question. Twisted. That's the problem. Shoot. I'm going to try to find your prior question. I don't know where it is. I found it. Okay, so you said half PPR, need 2 wide receivers in a flex, looking for high ceilings. You have St. Brown, Jaden Reed, BTJ, DJ Moore, Achane. So the way that I suggested you go about it would be playing St. Brown, Jaden Reed, and Achane. Those are the 3 that I suggested. Thank you very much, Twisted Folk. Okay, continuing on. We had a question that came in from Jash Smash, who says, nothing. Please type it in the chat, Jash. Connor says, Gibbs for CD Lamb. I have Kyron, Kenneth Walker, AJ Neighbors, BTJ Waddle. I mean, again, you have a lot of wide receiver depth, but as for like rest of season upside, if we're talking about a full PPR, I'd be okay with that. Assuming you can start 3 wide receivers in this league, of course. Otherwise, you have too many wide receivers. Neo Fumi says, in a wide receiver 2, Mooney, Pearsall, McMillan, Coleman are in half PPR. I'll take Mooney there. Again, the rankings on screen are half PPR. Gucci Han Louis Han says, in a half PPR, my guy, I've got Jordan Love and Romeo Dobbs in. Do I play Njoku or Tucker Kraft and go all Green Bay? You can go all Green Bay if you want. I think in a full PPR, I think it has to be Njoku. In a half PPR, I'm okay with playing Kraft, but I do prefer Njoku still. Giggs says that a full PPR, flex Bigsby, Mooney, or Pollard. I'd play Mooney in that scenario. Rusty Wright says, got here late. If JD5 plays, do I start him over Tua? Yes. But again, understand that Tua plays in about 15 minutes. Jaden Daniels plays in 3 hours and 15 minutes. So you would only be able to pivot out of Jaden Daniels if you have a Mariota or some other alternative option available to you. G Medina says in a full PPR, Rashad White or Devontae Smith or Stevenson. I would play Devontae Smith in a full PPR. Thank you. J Beats 14 says in a half PPR. Where's J Beats? I lost it. There it is. Half PPR flex. Dobbs or Najee. I'd take Najee there. Opponent has Jordan Love. It doesn't really bother me. I'm looking for the most total points. AW122095 says Rashad White, Terry McLaurin, or Mostert half PPR. Give me Terry McLaurin there. Danny Show says in a 3 wide receiver tight end league. Okay. Chase, Dobbs. My third is either Kittle, McMillan, or Worthy. It's Kittle, and it's 10 times out of 10 Kittle. Cody Shannon says full PPR, Brian Thomas or Achane. I'll take Achane this week. Thank you. Rusty Wright says flex 1, Dowdle, Tracy, Warren, DeMario Douglas, or Otton. Out of those available options, in let's say it's a full PPR, I'm going to play Otton. If it's a half PPR, I would probably lean towards playing Tracy or Dowdle, probably leaning towards Dowdle in that scenario. D. James says Javonte, Jacobs, Tank, Dobbins, need 2 in a full PPR. Javonte and Dobbins are my 2 suggestions. Thank you. Actually, you know what? Considering how much workload Jacobs gets in the receiving game, let me see where I have him in a full PPR. It might be ahead of Dobbins, actually. It is not. No, it's still Dobbins and Javonte. Thank you. David sends in a question. It says Kyler McBride stack or Tua Waddle in a half PPR. I'd rather stack Tua and Waddle. Honestly, if I have to pick stacks, that's the one that I'd rather have this week. Continuing on, we had a question that comes in from official Honest Abe. Says, it's your boy Honest. That's right. Full PPR. Drake or May. Dak or Drake May. I'd rather play Dak Prescott this week. Next question. Also, Dell, Waddle, JSN, Bigsby. Waddle's the suggestion there. I'm thinking Bigsby. No. And Waddle and Dell at wide receivers. Oh, okay, cool. So if you can start Waddle and Dell at wide receivers and then play Bigsby in the flex, I have no issue with that. That works for me. Brad says, full PPR. Drop Laporta for Njoku rest of the season. Honestly, I wouldn't bat an eye. I'd say okay with that, considering what we've seen from Laporta as of late. Darius Harris says in a 1 flex league in a 12-man full PPR looking for upside here. Ridley, Pearsall, or Dunze. I'm playing Pearsall there. Thank you. I'm hoping Tyreek just goes off for 3 touchdowns and erase my flex choice. Yeah, let's hope for. Arda says in a half PPR, pick 3. Kamara, JT, Cook, Devontae Adams, Waddle. Cool. Let me look at my half PPR rankings, and then I'll be able to convey exactly what I have it ranked as. So just to reiterate, you have Kamara, you have JT, you have Cook, you have Adams, you have Waddle. Cool. So of the available options you have here, Kamara, Cook sits there, JT sits there. Where's Adams? Adams sits there, and Waddle sits there. I would play all 3 running backs in a half PPR. Kamara, JT, and Cook. Thank you. Southern Dog sends in a question. Says, in a flex full PPR, do I go with an RB or wide receiver? I have Olave, Neighbors, Pollard, Chubb, or Taylor on the bench. In a full PPR, the flex belongs to Malik Neighbors. Thank you. Andy says, Pearsall start or versus Marvin Harrison and Lockett. Yes, I'm playing Pearsall over both of them. DK Ellie, the 4th, says, or Eli, says full PPR, Jacoby, Pearsall, Yoshi. Give me Pearsall. Thank you. Dr. Dabs says half PPR, pick 3. Jordan Mason, running back Tank, wide receiver Thomas, or Olave. Okay, cool. So if I'm starting 3, Jordan Mason's an auto start, and then I would play Brian Thomas Jr., and then I would play, let me see where I have Tank Bigsby in comparison to Olave. Tank Bigsby is, geez Louise, where's Olave though? Olave's there. And Bigsby's ahead of him. So yeah, the 3 that I would suggest in a half PPR would be Mason, Tank Bigsby, and Brian Thomas Jr. Thank you, Dabs. Mo Metcalf sends in another super chat, nothing attached to it. Mo, that was the issue the first time, man. Where's your question? Is it in the live chat? It is in the live chat. Beautiful. Okay, Mo says the following. Says, Mo Metcalf, full PPR, without Higgins, need highest upside. Pearsall, JSN, Marvin Harrison, McMillan. Yeah, I think it's, as of right now, in a full PPR, the way that I have it set is Pearsall, JSN, Marvin Harrison, McMillan in that exact order. If you want to kind of play the potential upside of JSN in the absence of DK Metcalf, I don't mind it. But Pearsall is my suggestion, JSN second. Thank you. Moving on to a question after Mo Metcalf, we move on to, let's see here. Henry Highland didn't attach a question to it. Henry, type that in the chat. Thank you. Same thing with you, Gio Ortiz. Type it in the live chat. Appreciate it. Connor says, it's 2 receiver, 1 flex. He offered me Gibbs. 2 receiver, 1 flex. He offered you Gibbs. I see. You have a lot of wide receiver depth. Okay, so yeah, getting the running back. Okay, that's fine. I don't mind that. That's fine by me. That's cool. Jawad sends in a question. Says, thoughts on Troy Franklin and Pearsall rest of season? Both should probably be on roster in a 12-man league. All right, according to Ian Rappaport, Jaden Daniels to start week 8, barring a setback. I don't know what that does for us. Like, how we... I mean, jeez Louise, man. All right, well, continuing on. We have 9 minutes before kickoff. Got a lot of questions to answer. Hodge WB sends in a question, says, full PPR, Javonte Williams or Tank Bigsby? Give me Javonte Williams there. Demont Smith says, in a full PPR, Cedric Tillman or Rico Dowdle? Let me see where I have Tillman and Dowdle. Tillman... I have Dowdle ahead of Tillman. Thank you. Moving on to a question from Medina, who says, meant Bigsby, not Biggs. Got it. Going up to your question, Medina, I'm starting everyone that you mentioned over Bigsby. So I'm playing Jacobs and I'm playing Waddle, both ahead of him. Thank you. Moving on to a question that comes in from, okay, so Chalateco09 says, Kate Otten or Andrews at tight end PPR. I'm playing Kate Otten there. Brother Man says Jaden Daniels or Goff. If Jaden Daniels actually does play today, he is the higher ranked over Goff. I have him as my number 5 quarterback in the event that he does play. Nick Watson says PPR, pick 2, Dell, Flowers, Otten. Give me Dell and Flowers. Thank you. Tyler says Dell or McLaurin in a standard league. Again, under the assumption that Jaden Daniels plays, it would be McLaurin there. Okay, let me go to the live chat. Let me see if Gio Ortiz and Henry Highland ended up typing something. Let's see here. Highland. Nothing from Henry Highland. So then we move on to Gio. Nothing from Gio Ortiz. Is that serious? Really? Neither of you? All right. Both of you gone. I'm keeping it moving. All right. Continuing on with the next questions on hand, we have Nathaniel Samuel says, in a full PPR, pick 2, Mondrake, Tank, Tracy, Bucky, or Alexander Madison. Out of that group, I'll take Tank and Tracy. Thank you. Moving on to Ryan Thompson, who says, in a full PPR, do I go with Otten or McMillan? I'd rather play Otten in a full PPR if it's my team. I already have Njoku tight end. Yeah, that's cool. Play both tight ends. Sal Palumbo says, in a half PPR, Tillman or Yoshi Voss? I think I mentioned this earlier. I think I'm going to lean towards Yoshi Voss in that scenario. Perp Cal X says, in a full PPR, Chase Brown or Pearsall? Or sorry, half PPR, Chase Brown or Pearsall? I will take Chase Brown there. Moving on to Daniel. Nothing attached. Daniel, type it in the live chat. Rusty Wright says, for what it's worth, snag the Knicks in case of JD. Okay, that works. That's perfect. Sanji Kuhn says, in a full PPR, Tank Dell or Brian Robinson Jr.? I would rather probably play Brian Robinson there. Let me confirm that. Yeah, let's see here. Brian Robinson. Where are you? Yeah, Brian Robinson. Actually, no. You know what? In a full PPR, I have Tank Dell. Scratch that. Tank Dell's right. Higher in a full PPR. My apologies. Nelson Martinez says, Jaden Daniels in a full PPR or Javonte Williams? I think Javonte Williams is like a guaranteed 18 points, maybe even more upside. In comparison to Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed has a lot of upside, but I don't know, man. Between the two of them, I think I just take the safety of Javonte Williams. Can Jaden Daniels score 30 points today? Or Jaden Reed scored 30 points today? Sure, but I think I just roll with the safety of Javonte right now. Nathan says Goff or Mayfield. I'd rather play Goff. Jash Smash says nothing. Jash, type it in the chat. Where are you? You didn't type anything again? Gio Ortiz, anything? Gio? Nothing in the chat? Okay. Yeah, again, if you guys don't type in the live chat, I can't help you. Even if you send in a super chat, there's nothing I can do. You don't attach the question, it just does not work. Let me see if Henry Highland did so. Highland? There you go. Henry Highland said, my question is in. That's all he said. My question is in. I don't see your question, brother. I don't know what to tell you. It's literally not in. You might need to redact your question, rewrite it, because there's a system on YouTube where if you send in the same question too many times, you get shadow banned and removed from the chat. Just do it. 843 says Tony Pollard, Tank Dell, or Zay Flowers. If you're worried about Zay Flowers, you just pivot to Tank Dell. Otherwise, I have Zay Flowers ranked higher as it currently stands. Rap is reporting Jaden will start. If he starts, he's a top 5 quarterback. He's literally my number 5 quarterback going into the week, if he is active. Andy says Scoot Henderson or Andre Drummond. Scoot Henderson, take higher on assists. That's what I'm going to lean towards. If you're going to go with Andre Drummond, you go with higher on rebounds, but you might have to move the number down. Chris Moraga sends in a question, nothing attached to it. Jash says LMAO. Jash, I see the question. Says, Andrew, half PPR. I'm stuck between Rashad White, BTJ, and Devontae in a flex full. Okay. Half PPR for. Okay. As of right now, I'm going to lean towards playing BTJ there, number 1. That would be my preference. I think Rashad White has the floor, but considering Bucky's active now, even though earlier this week there was a potential in which he wouldn't be, I think a lot of the upside of Rashad he has to guarantee to score a touchdown. Otherwise, it's a little bit sketchier. So I'm going to lean towards BTJ in that circumstance. Chris, where's your question? Says in a full PPR, Chuba Hubbard or Wan'Dale Robinson. I legitimately have Wan'Dale Robinson ranked higher. Daniel says in a half PPR, Chubb, Myers, or Hopkins. As of those in a half PPR, I'm going to lean towards playing Nick Chubb. Jawad says 97 Kane or 06 Cena. It's got to be 06 Cena. It's not even close. Let's see here. I see it, Chris. I got to it. Thank you. Gio Ortiz in the chat says PPR start 2 in flex 1. Olave, JSN, Adunze, Bateman, Yoshi, Tolbert, Dowdle, Warren. Okay, so of the available, JSN, Olave, Bateman, those are the 3 that I'm rolling with. Gio, thank you. Did Highland send in anything? Highland? I see D Highland. And he says Jonnu or Will Disley or Dalton Schultz. I'll take Jonnu Smith there, D Highland. Henry Highland just says, my question is in, which again, it doesn't, I don't see anything else. Again, I think you may have gotten shadow banned because you typed in the same question too many times, which again, not really your fault, but it is, how the system works. CJ says in a full PPR, Jonathan Taylor or James Conner. I prefer James Conner today. For the flex, or do we, what does it say? Or we have Kamara and Zay Flowers. Full PPR, Jonathan Taylor or Connor for flex, or play I have Kamara. Honestly, if I was in your position, again, I'm going to play Connor over JT, but if I could play JT over Zay Flowers, I'd probably do that. No Name says, No Name, I'd play Flowers and probably Devontae Smith there in a full PPR pretty comfortably. Brian Pippin sends in a question, says J.K. Dobbins or DJ Moore. I prefer J.K. Dobbins as of right now. Thank you. Is Kittle playing? Yes. 2 more minutes, everyone. 2 more minutes. Again, like I mentioned earlier, let me go ahead and reiterate. If, in fact, Jaden Daniels plays today, okay, he is in a half PPR, my number 5 overall quarterback. That would move Terry McLaurin to being my number 18 overall wide receiver, and then moving Brian Robinson to my number 18 overall running back, and then subsequently also moving up the potential of kind of a little bit of Austin Eckler, but not too much to where I'm like jumping him a massive amount. Let's see here. Joseph Romero says Brian Robinson, Bigsby, or Mooney in a half PPR. I'm going to lean towards Brian Robinson there now. Papa Bless says Daniels or Kyler again. If you don't have a pivoting option to Jaden Daniels, you would play Kyler. Otherwise, you would try to play Daniels if you have a pivoting option like a Bo Nix, Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, something that is in the later swing of games, even Mariota. Texans or Packers defense. The rankings are on screen. They will filter in, Ali. Check it out. DD says in a 0.25 PPR flex question, Rashad White, Scary Terry, Olave, Devontae Smith. At that point, you just play Scary Terry. Aiden sends in a question. Aiden, are you going to ask about a potential play today? If you are, again, we're 2 minutes before the game starting. Good morning, Andrew. Can't wait to see the wide receiver running back touchdown parlay sit. Also, Lockett or Keenan Allen. I'd rather play Lockett today. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Full PPR, Otten or Bigsby? I'd rather play Otten, Brian. Super Dave says, I'm starting Ray Davis over Singletary. Yeah, you should. You definitely should. Chuba Hubbard, Pollard, or Bucky? I'd rather play Pollard out of the group there, Astro. Anonymous says, good luck all. Thank you. Steve says, hi, Andrew. In a full PPR flex, Wilson, Tank Bigsby, or Tank Dell? As of right now, Garrett Wilson would be the play there. Enjoy the games, everyone. Yes, you do as well, Edub. Lewis says, let's fucking go. Let's go. Atta baby. Smash the like button. Thank you very much, Robert Baldwin. I appreciate that. Alrighty. Thanks, guys. BTJ or Pickens? I'd rather play Pickens there. All right, everybody, it's 10 a.m. I appreciate y'all coming through, supporting the channel over the course of the last 3 hours and supporting me over the course of this entire season. Again, I'll be back tomorrow with waiver wire potential options. Royston Gibson's in the final question of the day, hopefully. PPR, 2 start, 1 flex. Jonathan Taylor, BRJ, Achane, Bigsby, Tracy. Of the available, you are playing Achane, Taylor, and Brian Robinson. Achane, Taylor, Brian Robinson. Lock those in, Royston. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Any parlays for Monday night? Again, that will be included in tomorrow's waiver wire video. Again, this man does NBA too. Yes, I do, but I don't suggest them because I mean I've hit a couple big ones. The opening night I hit like a $300 play and I suggested it on the quarterback and tight end video, or was it the wide receiver video? I don't remember. But either way, I play a little bit of basketball, or I watch a lot of basketball as well when the NFL is not on. I don't have any plays today, but whatever. Okay. The Denver Broncos, Braun, the guy who was the 6th man last year, now he starts. Take him higher on points almost every week. Or every game. I'm telling you, it is a absolute cheat code. On top of it, give me Zubac going higher on rebounds every time out. The guy's a machine. Okay, guys, have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the games. Hopefully no injuries. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Until then, we're going to go ahead and we're going to cue the double helix. Enjoy listening to that. And, of course, enjoy the 8 hours of commercial-free Red Zone. See you guys. Peace.